Empress of the Great Yan Dynasty. Flying Fish's story, Great Yan Dynasty. Yet, she summons the Empress of the Great Yan Dynasty as her husband. Flying Fish's story. Little did she know, Flying Fish's story. The man is an earthling from a higher dimension. Flying Fish's story. In this lower dimensional alternate spacetime, Flying Fish's story, standing up already makes him invincible. Flying Fish's story. That day, the man just woke up from a sleep. Flying Fish's story. I found a woman beside me. She was stunningly beautiful, with a voluptuous figure. Flying Fish said. The man was stunned. Flying Fish said, how did this woman end up in my bed? Flying Fish said, am I not clean? Flying Fish said. After a moment, the woman finally recovered. Flying Fish said, she explained somewhat awkwardly, I slept here, just to silence the ministers. Flying Fish. It turned out that the woman was the Empress of the Great Yan Dynasty. Feiyu Shua Man. Because of the undercurrents in the court, the ministers urged her to marry. Unwilling to be coerced by the ministers, she used a spirit talisman to summon a servant from another time and space. As for the man, he was originally an ace assassin from a 21st century organization. That day, he was being surrounded by a rival organization. He was about to make his move when he suddenly discovered he found himself in an unfamiliar room. A red cloth was draped over his head. Empress Si Ruoyan looked at the man she had summoned. He had no cultivation, just an ordinary person. The man stared blankly at the woman in front of him. Her exquisite features, this graceful figure, and her dominating presence. She was simply perfect. The woman sighed softly, forget it. Better for a mortal. It saves a lot of trouble. The man looked confused. Who are you? Where am I? The woman looked down at him. I am the Empress of the Great Yan Dynasty. From today on, you will be the Prince of the Great Yan Dynasty. That is, my husband. The man was overjoyed. Does this mean I can do nothing from now on? Can I just focus on being a kept man? Empress Si Ruoyan nodded slightly. Yes, she said. The man quickly patted the bed. Then what are you waiting for? Let's begin. But the Empress told him that the consummation of the marriage cannot be fulfilled for now. As for the summoning talisman's contract ring, I will find a way to solve it for you. After saying this, the Empress left with her maidservant. After she left, the man raised his hand. This is the contract ring she mentioned. Wearing this, it's impossible to harm the summoner. Just then, a voice sounded. Would you like to activate the ultimate supreme system? The man smiled slightly. A system with time travel, I can't believe I actually encountered it. Since that's the case, I'll definitely choose no. He had been an orphan adopted by an assassin organization since childhood. To survive, he kept growing stronger, constantly engaging in meaningless killings, all just to complete so-called missions. The path of a supreme strongman. He's long since tired of that. What else in this world could be more enjoyable than being a carefree prince with all his needs met? Seeing the man's refusal, the system prepares to erase his memories, then leave him and search for a new target. The man drinks tea, calm and composed, unaffected. The next second, the system suddenly shows, erasure failed, unable to disconnect. The system attempts to bind again, but still shows, binding failed. Then, recognize the master. Still a failure. The system suddenly becomes agitated. Warning. The other party is an extremely rare earth creature. Activate slave parasitic mode. Still failed. The system can only continue trying. The man was speechless. What is going on? Attempting to parasitize. Failed to activate. This system wants to be its own slave. It can't even do that. The system tried to parasitize a full 9,999 times. Still failed. It can only ask the man if it can become the man's auxiliary system. Become his slave. The man smiled faintly. This system actually became my lickspittle. After confirming, the system requested that the man give it a name. The man blurted out, how about you call yourself Wang Kai? The system immediately expressed its liking. However, it reminded the man that Qin Hao should learn to restrain his aura as soon as possible. Otherwise, I might unintentionally erase myself and endanger other lives. The man glanced at the potted plant, half erased beside him. Is this my aura causing this? This won't do. I need to suppress it. The man quickly learned how to retract his aura from the magic formula sent by the system. Once done, he turned to the potted plant and asked the system, Wang Kai, what's going on with me? Respected master, you come from a higher dimensional plane. You have long been under the suppression of 49,000 rules. Now, you've arrived in this low-dimensional plane. Your strength has lost the suppression of the heavenly rules. Your body is crazily absorbing the power between heaven and earth. It is your own. The man thought for a moment. So, what is the rule pressure of this world? Honorable master, the rules of this world suppressed to 3,000. Hearing this, the man immediately spat, a mouthful of water that pierced through the wall. This feeling was indeed quite strange. Immediately after, the system sent the man's current status. Xiao Tian, no realm, unknown characteristics. Bloodline, Earthling. After unlocking the coffee lock, upper limit unknown. Descendants of Yan and Huang, you can ignore any rules or laws. The dragon has suppressive power over any bloodline or physique. Against the descendants of dragons, it has absolute suppression over any beast, and these are just abilities that can be detected temporarily. The man casually strolled to a training arena. He picked up a long blade, and with a light motion, he broke the blade in half. The man was rendered speechless. This empress is too lax with her subordinates, cutting corners like this. Wang Kai quickly reminded him. Honorable Master, spiritual tools are classified into 9 tiers. Each tier is further divided into 4 qualities: superior, middle, inferior, and extreme. This longsword is already a grade 6 premium item. Even in the Great Yan Dynasty, it is considered of high quality. Upon hearing this, the man picked up another longsword. This longsword is clearly a more advanced, high-quality blade. The man tried to strike his own palm with the sword, but his hand was fine, yet the longsword cracked. After casually throwing the sword back to its original place, the man probably had a clear understanding of his abilities. As for those weapons, he had no desire to touch them again, nor did he want to resume the killing. The next morning, the man woke up from his sleep. He felt the man's movements. The Empress slowly woke up. The man was startled and shouted, "What happened last night? Am I not clean anymore?" Seeing the woman looking dazed, the man reached out and patted her face, saying, "You didn't with me, did you?" Only then did the Empress snap out of it. She cleared her throat and asked in a feigned authoritative tone, "Did you sleep well last night?" The man felt a little embarrassed. "I slept quite well, but did I sleep in the wrong place?" The Empress shook her head and explained, "I sleep here, simply to silence the gossips. If we share a room after the wedding, those with ulterior motives will make a fuss again. From now on, I will occasionally come by," the Empress said as she prepared to leave. "I will send someone. If you need anything, just ask." Just before leaving, the Empress turned around to tell him, "I summoned you here for my own selfish gain. Sorry about that." The man watched her leave, remembering the warmth of last night. "I can't help but laugh to the heavens. Truly a great Empress. The woman who supports me is truly extraordinary. It seems my good days are coming." Night, within the Imperial Study, Empress Si Ruoyan is reviewing the memorials. The situation in the north is this bad already? The female general, Zhongli Huang, hurriedly explained. "The barbarians are increasingly active. I fear someone is manipulating things from behind the scenes, according to intelligence reports. The barbarian shaman has already left the royal court." Upon hearing this, the Empress threw the memorial onto the table. She intends to lead the troops personally, to personally cut off this old thing's outstretched hand. Pass the order. 3 days from now, I will lead the troops to the northern territories. Zhongli Huang was overjoyed. "Yes, your majesty." The Empress rode a majestic steed. She asked Zhongli Huang, who was standing beside her, "Is everything arranged?" Linger has already been secretly following him. "Nothing will go wrong. But your majesty, why are you so concerned about a man with no cultivation?" The Empress smiled faintly. "After I married him, the luck of the Great Yan Dynasty has become more stable. Even my own strength has increased. Alright, let's depart." The generals immediately received their orders. They headed north. Not far away, a proud figure watched the departing troops. This person was none other than General Zhongli Shuang's daughter, Zhongling. She let out a long sigh. "Mother, really, not only did she leave me behind when going to war with His Majesty, but she also made me secretly protect this useless prince. His Majesty is leading a grand campaign. This guy went up the mountain just to satisfy his appetite, and didn't even see him off. I really don't understand how His Majesty could marry someone like him." At that moment, a shadow suddenly leaped out, and took the man away. Zhongling watched the scene, but did not intervene. He really is asking for trouble. I wonder if that useless prince is scared out of his wits. Little did they know, the man was smiling as he ate a pig leg. "This tastes so good, it's a pity Wang Kai won't get to taste it." A moment later, the man was thrown in front of several people. A scarred-faced man glanced at him and quickly asked, "Old Four, are you sure you didn't grab the wrong person? That Empress's husband? How could he be such a simpleton?" The man continued to gnaw on a pig leg, as if he had nothing to worry about. Zhongling hid in a tree, speechlessly watching this useless prince. But these people should be from Blood Cloud Manor. Oh well, let's take advantage of their relaxed guard. First, take the person away, think of this. Zhongling turned into a shadow and darted out. In an instant, she appeared in front of the man. She reached out her hand, signaling for him to grab hold of her. But just then, a sudden change occurred. Zhongling immediately realized she had fallen into a trap. This was actually a level 6 ceiling formation, the spirit chain cage formation. Zhongling was instantly trapped, unable to move. Scarface chuckled. At the age of 16, she stepped into the 5th stage void-breaking realm, a proud child of heaven. Hello there. The man beside her continued eating a pig's leg leisurely. Wang Kai, what exactly is this void-breaking realm? It turns out that in this world, cultivation is divided into 10 stages. The stages are, body refining, qi gathering, and pill condensation. Nie Lu, breaking through the void, life and death. Awakening, transcending. The saint realm of the 10th stage of the saint order. As they spoke, Zhongling struggled to pull out his sword and break the formation. The scarred face, however, laughed and said, "Stop wasting your effort. This formation specifically counters your breaking barrier /" Zhongling froze for a moment. Who are you? How do you know? Heh, how would I know? How would I know? Saying this, the scarred face slowly removed his mask. The cruelty on his face was revealed without reservation. Moments later, the two were taken to a cave. Zhongling shouted angrily, "Liang Shou, you're not dead." The man wiped his hands and slowly stood up. Since everyone knows each other, we'll be leaving now. Liang Yi grabbed the man's shoulder, trying to leave. There's still business to take care of, Xiao Zifen. Is that so? Alright then. The man still had a nonchalant attitude. Liang Shou couldn't help but sigh. Truly, he's worthy of being the husband of that empress. Have some guts. He suddenly pulled out a cloth bag. Just dissolve this in water, and throw it onto the empress's martial arts arena. You can not only register, but also he. The man snatched the cloth bag and laughed, no problem. Liang Shou was completely dumbfounded by this operation. He pulled out a small bottle. Just a verbal agreement won't do. You also have to. Before he finished speaking, the man grabbed the bottle again. He poured its contents into his mouth. Liang Shou was stunned. Is there really someone who seeks death on purpose these days? The man wiped his mouth. He returned the bottle to Liang Shou and said, "Can I leave now? I'm worried that if I wait too long, it will arouse the suspicion of the Imperial Guards. It's not conducive to helping you." Liang Shou looked at the empty bottle. A wave of anxiety washing over him. What should I do next? This question is a bit beyond the scope. The man was speechless. I've been so cooperative. Why won't he let me go? Zhongling couldn't help but angrily denounce his shamelessness upon seeing this. Now even Shuiyan Tower is starting to get involved. The man was too lazy to listen to their nonsense. He pointed at Zhongling and asked, "Can I take her with me?" Liang Shou refused. "No, I have some grudges with this woman. I want to deal with her while I'm at it. This is not possible. She and I came together. She's not coming with me. Then I'm as good as dead." His subordinate angrily said, "If you can't speak, then shut up. Has the boss given you face?" Seeing that the man remained unmoved, this guy actually raised his fist and charged at him. Just as the man's hair was grabbed in a quick motion, Zhongling urgently shouted, "Xiao Tian, be careful. You must know, the prince is just an ordinary person. He has no cultivation at all. Can he withstand this?" But the man just yawned boredly. He completely stunned everyone. How can this guy be so relaxed? The next second, the man's expression changed. "Must you keep touching me? I hate people touching my hair the most." Then the man threw a punch. Instantly, the guy beside me was completely vaporized. Everyone present was stunned. That was a 5th stage powerhouse. As the smoke cleared, the cave had been pierced with a large hole. The man waved his hand again. A violent force surged out. Anyone hit by it was instantly vaporized. She kept bowing her head repeatedly, but in the next moment, Liang Shou's figure also began to disintegrate, until it slowly turned into flying ash. After it was done, the man turned to look at Zhongling. Zhongling was already stunned by the scene before her. She was so frightened that she begged for mercy. "Prince, I know I was wrong. I won't dare again." Before she could finish speaking, the man crushed the formation with his bare hand. Then he jested, "Are you an idiot? Right, don't move. I'll go buy some oranges and be right back," he said. The man instantly disappeared. Zhongling breathed a sigh of relief. At least his life was saved. A mountain in the distance suddenly flew up. She smiled and comforted herself. It's a good thing it's not the prince. Just a mountain that's bouncing and jumping over. Wait a minute. How can a mountain bounce and jump? Zhongling focused her eyes and looked. The man holding the giant mountain is none other than the useless prince she mentioned, right? What kind of monster is this? Zhongling was stunned. Could it be that the prince is the legendary existence that surpasses the 10th tier saint realm? Just as Zhongling was lost in thought, a huge mountain crashed down, completely covering everything behind her. Probably no one would have imagined that there used to be a cave under that mountain. The man clapped his hands and laughed. Done. There's no trace of my involvement now. Zhongling was terrified. She only wanted to thank His Highness at this moment for letting her know what it means to destroy all traces. Immediately, the man turned and prepared to leave. Little girl, when the time comes, just say it was you who saved me. Zhongling was about to speak, but the man turned his head and coldly said, "Didn't your mother tell you that you should listen carefully to what adults say?" Zhongling trembled like a kitten whose tail had been stepped on. In the next moment, he immediately kneeled and kowtowed. "I swear I absolutely won't say anything." The man then helped Zhongling up. "Let's go, we're heading back." Just then, a sound of footsteps suddenly came from the jungle nearby. The person approaching was a female soldier of the DaiYan dynasty, the princess. "General Zhong, are you all alright?" The man yawned boredly. Zhongling instantly understood. She cleared her throat and told everyone, "The thieves have been slain by me. Rest assured." Then the man waved his hand. "Alright, everyone's worked hard. Let's go back and continue eating the barbecue." The female soldier leading them is called Lu Yen. She told the man, "Prince Qi, there are thieves in these mountains. I fear it may no longer be safe." The man waved his hand dismissively. "It's fine. The thieves have all been killed by this young lady." Upon hearing this, the female soldiers exchanged looks, thinking, the prince is done for. The young general hates evil with a passion. She can't stand someone like Xiao Tian who only cares about pleasure. The prince still calls the young general, "Little girl." Try to stop her later. Don't let the prince get killed by the young general. Unexpectedly, Zhongling didn't react at all. She obediently followed the man forward. Seeing everyone stunned, Zhongling turned her head and told them, "What are you still dawdling for? Hurry up and catch up." Hearing this, everyone was shocked. When did the young general become so good-tempered? Soon after, a bonfire was lit, and Kunzai escaped unharmed. The second senior brother was put on the fire. The man beckoned. "Little girl, do you have a knife?" Zhongling immediately presented a short knife with both hands. The man cut a piece of meat and put it in his mouth. It was tender, juicy, and quite good. Zhongling continued to serve with a smile at the side. Several female soldiers stood behind the two of them, all of them in shock. This is it, this is the end. The major general has lost his mind. Soon after, the man suddenly asked Zhongling, "Little girl, the people who just took me away, are they old acquaintances of yours?" Zhongling's expression turned serious immediately. Yes they are. The leader is called Liang Shou. He used to be the bandit leader of Yanlang village. This was a test my mother set for me before my coming-of-age ceremony. He should have been publicly beheaded a year ago. Unexpectedly, he became an assassin for Blood Cloud Tower. Hearing, coming-of-age ceremony, the man paused. "How old are you?" Zhongling blushed slightly and lowered her head. "I'm 16. 16. This is where I have to criticize your mother. You're so young, yet she lets you do these things." Zhongling nodded obediently without saying more. Meanwhile, the female soldiers nearby were discussing. This time, they captured the prince, but their real target is the Empress. Who's behind it, no one knows. This time, their mission failed. Within 7 days, Ka will surely send more people. The man was startled. They'll come again after 7 days. A female soldier quickly stood up and suggested, "Your Highness, why don't you stay in the palace temporarily? The palace's formations are strong, and the Blood Cloud Tower assassins would definitely not dare to act rashly." Hearing this, the man immediately decided to stay in the palace. At once, all the female soldiers fell silent. How scared of death can this prince be? Zhongling, however, thought to himself, how unwilling is this prince to take action? That day, after the man finished the barbecue on the mountain, he suggested going for a walk elsewhere to digest. Seeing the two of them walk off into the distance, the two guards whispered to each other, "Do you think the Major General also likes that kind of thing with women? Why is he so nice to the prince? Stop talking nonsense. The Major General's thoughts are beyond our understanding." Got it, but next, I don't know how many more citizens will suffer because of Blood Cloud Tower. The man stood at the edge of the cliff, staring into the distance. Suddenly, he asked Zhongling who was standing nearby, what was that about the common people suffering that the Imperial Guards were discussing just now? What happened? Zhongling gave a speechless glance at the group of Imperial Guards. Then he explained, Blood Cloud Tower's mission has failed this time. They might do as usual and slaughter the common people. They'll force the Great Yan Dynasty's government to pay protection money. The man was stunned. Protection money, what does it mean? It turns out that in the past, some Qingkong officials in the court touched the interests of some local powerful families. They would then put out bounties at Shuayan Tower. The court would protect these officials. Shuayan Tower couldn't succeed. They would massacre the common people to force the court to submit. The court could only pay protection money. Tell Blood Cloud Tower to cancel the low-level operation. The mission to capture you has failed. They will definitely continue to act. If that doesn't work, they will massacre the common people and demand protection fees. The man immediately became angry. He originally came from an S organization, but he would never harm innocent civilians. He asked Zhongling, based on your understanding of your Empress, if she knew about my strength, would she let me take action? Zhongling replied, His Majesty probably would. Zhongling suddenly felt baffled. You must have misunderstood the meaning of not bad here. The man suddenly felt frustrated. If I take action, my strength will be exposed. If I don't, the common people will suffer. This matter started because of me. If Ziru's mother divorces me, then my days of having food handed to me and clothes delivered will be over. No way. That's terrifying. I must kill everyone from Blood Cloud Tower. Zhongling was left speechless. Your Highness, this is an answer with no solution. Shall we just solve the problem? Then, the man looked around, and seeing no one nearby, he suddenly grabbed Zhongling's slender waist. With a slight force under his feet, they shot into the sky with a loud boom. Zhongling was stunned. The prince didn't use any spiritual energy at all. He could fly this fast just with physical strength. But soon, Zhongling couldn't even think properly anymore. Only hysterical shouts remained in his mouth. The system quickly prompted the man. Zhongling's body has reached a critical point. It suggested slowing down. After a long while, the man stopped. We've arrived. Zhongling looked at the emptiness in front of him, his face full of confusion. Where is it? The next second, the man suddenly clenched his fist. A punch struck the space in front. The violent energy instantly exploded, accompanied by the sound of cracking. A formation shield was shattered. Immediately, a floating island appeared before them. Zhongling couldn't help but exclaim, It's a flying spirit tool. No wonder His Majesty couldn't find it. It's been in the sky all along. What should we do next? Are we sneaking in? The man smiled slightly. Sneaking in? That's impossible. The man jumped high, and broke the door open directly. Everyone in the hall, all of Blood Cloud Tower, immediately burst into an imposing aura. Zhongling and the others were stunned. The weakest ones here are all at the void-breaking realm. A woman smiled coquettishly. It's rare to see an unfamiliar face. Who are you? Come to our Blood Cloud Tower. Before he could finish, a violent burst of energy erupted, instantly sweeping through the entire hall. Watching the blood splatter everywhere, Zhongling's eyes widened. The prince truly showed us with his actions. What does, if you can do it yourself, don't make a fuss, mean? At this moment, 3 people appeared again in the hall. Who dares to cause trouble in Blood Cloud Tower? The girl who followed the man, Zhongling, couldn't help but exclaim. There are actually 2 silver-ranked assassins and 1 gold-ranked assassin here. The system, Wang Kai, also sent an introduction. A silver-ranked assassin requires a level 7 awakening realm to serve, while a gold-ranked assassin, it's even more important to have a 100% mission completion rate. The golden-bordered assassin chuckled as he rubbed his wrist. Zhong Lishuang's legitimate daughter, and a prince of the Great Yan Empire. Looks like you two are quite capable. You're forcing me to make a move. He told the 2 people beside him. Don't kill her. The prince still has some value to us. Send her head to the northern front, Zhongling. I estimate that Zhong Lishuang will go crazy. It will be beneficial to the plan. Zhongling listened to his wild words, but could only clench his teeth in silence. The man, however, smiled slightly. The intelligence is so detailed. You must have an insider in the Great Yan dynasty, right? It seems your ambitions are not small. The assassin with the golden border immediately pulled out a short dagger. Our headquarters has had its eye on the DaiYan dynasty for a long time. Come on, let me see what this useless prince can do. Before he finished speaking, the gold-edged assassin suddenly froze. It turns out the man made his move. To be precise, he showed his power. The entire Blood Cloud Tower branch was overwhelmed by his aura. The 3 assassins instantly felt dizzy and their heads throbbed. Even Zhongling couldn't hold on. The golden border assassin knelt directly on the ground. We may have a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I just want to be a law-abiding, kind, and you keep sending people to trouble me. Aren't you forcing me to destroy your headquarters? Why are you forcing me? Saying this, the man clenched his fist. A single punch sent wind swirling. Looking at the gaping hole blasted through the great hall, the 2 Silver Edge assassins couldn't help but curse the intelligence department at headquarters. You call this monster a waste? The remaining 2, the man didn't even bother to make a move. He simply withdrew his aura. Then he helped Zhongling, who was petrified with fright, to her feet. Zhongling dazedly questioned the man. Your Highness, are you still going to their headquarters? Yes, there's no choice. This tumor must be removed. Then, the man smashed a wall with a punch. Inside, there were all the gold and silver treasures looted by the Blood Cloud Tower. The man had Wang Kai collect them all. They've done so many bad things to me. Isn't it reasonable to ask for some compensation for emotional distress? Zhongling was stunned. It's not unreasonable. Who dares say you've gone too far? Afterward, the man suddenly crushed a stone talisman. He then threw the magic array formed from the talisman towards Zhongling. Zhongling was stunned. This is a mountain-subduing talisman. Your Highness, you mustn't. This 7th order defensive talisman is too precious. The man then explained, the Cloud Tower headquarters is quite far. I need to fly faster. Otherwise, I was afraid we'd miss dinner, and I was worried you wouldn't be able to handle it. So, with this talisman, it should be fine now. Zhongling didn't react in time, before the man slapped him on the shoulder. The man gave a slight smile, and in an instant, he shot straight into the sky. Once again, the sky echoed with Zhongling's scream. Zhongling didn't expect the man's speed to even surpass a 7th level defensive talisman. They were both feeling overwhelmed, and it wasn't long before the two arrived at the Blood Cloud Tower headquarters. As the man landed, the Blood Cloud Tower's protective formation shattered like an eggshell. The man's heart pounded. Truly worthy of being the #1 assassin organization. The smell of blood here is too strong. Moments later, a group of people surrounded the two. How dare you? How dare you trespass Blood Cloud Tower? At this moment, a strong man and a woman slowly walked over. The man wore a mocking expression. People seeking death really never seemed to stop appearing. Zhongling looked at the two golden-edged assassins. Their aura was indeed terrifying, but the next second, she was distracted by a voice from the top of the tower. I have considered it. Who could it be visiting so suddenly? But I never expected. It would be a prince of the Great Yan Dynasty and General Zhong. After saying this, the figure leaped down. As soon as they landed, everyone around immediately knelt on the spot. Greetings, Master, Zhongling whispered to the man. This is the leader of Shuayan Tower, the king of assassins in the southern wilds, Yunzun. The man asked indifferently. Does your Blood Cloud Tower care about the Great Yan Dynasty? Yunzun smiled slightly. Yes, but right now, I'm more interested in you. The useless prince from the intelligence report. To think you found your way here in such a short time. Perhaps you are closer to the secrets of the Great Dynasty. Come, get him. Take him down, but be gentle, don't hurt him. To everyone's surprise, the burly man suddenly gestured for them to stop. Wait, let me have some fun with him first. Faced with his provocation, the man was deep in thought. There are over 100 people here. When we make our move later, we must make sure no one escapes. We can't let any information leak. Huang Gang noticed his silence. He went forward again to provoke, saying, Little guy, you look quite tender. It seems the Empress of the Great Yan Dynasty likes this kind of pretty boy. You guys, what if I punch him later? Will this pretty boy's nose break? Several subordinates burst into laughter. The man, however, looked arrogant. He pointed at his own head and said, Come on, hit me here. As soon as he said that, everyone present was stunned. To everyone's surprise, after the smoke cleared, they discovered that Huang Gang's punch had been blocked. The man had even used just one finger. Haven't you eaten? Can you use some strength? Huang Gang was furious. He gathered all his strength and threw a punch. But once again, the man blocked it with just one finger. The man waved his finger. You're not doing it right. What are you doing? I told you to put some strength into it. Huang Gang was completely enraged. He kept swinging his fists, one after another. In the end, he even gathered his life force into his fist. He threw a powerful punch, and with a loud bang, a golden light radiated from the man. Huang Gang was flung far away, embedding himself in the wall. His body was torn and bloody. The man sneered. That's a novel approach. You almost killed yourself. Hearing this, Huang Gang wept. Those dogs from intelligence. Are they all brainless? What kind of garbage intelligence did you gather? Seeing the man's tears, he couldn't help but feel speechless. Don't they use their brains at all? Don't they understand what it means that he could find this himself? Wang Kai then explained. Because the man's body is still strengthening and he can't cultivate. He's an ordinary person without any cultivation level. That's why these people misjudged. Just then, other islands of the Blood Cloud Tower also appeared. The man thought to himself, it's time to make a move. In the next moment, several attacks shot towards the newly arrived island. The island hadn't even stabilized its landing, before it was blown to pieces. Seeing this, the others were directly stunned. Is this still human? In an instant, everyone cast spells to hide and flee. We must escape separately. Only then is there hope of escaping. Huang Gang, however, lay on the spot, thinking that even if only one person could escape, he must pass on the news of this monster. He didn't believe it. With dozens of assassins present, not a single one would escape. The man's face was cold, and he said nothing. In an instant, he appeared in front of one person and struck with a palm. Then, she teleported behind another person. Once again, she eliminated someone, and after a flurry of whooshing sounds, followed by a series of booming noises, Huang Gang was left stunned. How is this possible? The woman who had been next to Yunzun just moments ago, was now right in front of him. Master truly is unmatched in power. Would you spare this humble life, my lord? May I serve you? Zhongling watched the woman's back. Her name was Yu Yan. She was particularly skilled at enchanting men. Once her target was lost in her gentle embrace, she would cut open their chest and eat their heart. I wonder if His Highness the Prince can resist such beauty. Zhongling thought, but the next moment, she was stunned. The man suddenly flew into a rage and reprimanded her. You woman, you have such a vicious mind. What do you mean by that? The man explained, your begging for mercy is one thing, but saying you'll serve me. How would the Empress see me then? If she misunderstands and thinks I'm promiscuous, and therefore divorces me, how can I remain a carefree prince and enjoy my life? Such a poisonous scheme. I can't have you. The man punched down. Yu Yan didn't understand until her death. How absurdly she died. As she breathed her last, she managed to utter a sentence. Only this cloud venerable of the building remains, hiding under the bed, hoping the treasure in the upstairs room would attract the man's attention. He thought. The man was the so-called secret of the Great Yan dynasty. All intelligence reports said he was an ordinary person, but this is clearly an invincible monster. Those floating islands were something Yun Zunlai obtained by chance in his early years. Their strength is such that even a 10th-tier saint realm could withstand them. I never expected this man to destroy them with a single punch. And the ruins where Yun Zunlai obtained the treasure back then, according to the analysis of the text inside, the ruins belonged to the ancient Great Yan Empire from a distant era. So now, all the forces are eyeing the Great Yan dynasty, especially the secrets of the ancient era. At this moment, Yun Zunlai noticed that the outside had suddenly become quiet. He finally sighed in relief. They've finally left. But to his surprise, the next second, the man suddenly appeared in front of him, waving his hand to greet him. Yun Zunlai was struck as if by lightning. I almost peed my pants. You blurted out, holy shit. The man smiled slightly. Are you a child, hiding under the bed? Saying this, he reached out to grab her, but Yunzuan immediately used a secret technique, and transformed into smoke to escape. As soon as she fled the floating island, he detonated the island. I'll blow this place up. Now let's see how you get out. Yun Zunlai had barely calmed down from his excitement. When the man came rushing toward him, roaring with the wind, he grabbed him by the neck. What the hell are you running from? As he said this, the man, like picking up a little chick, dragged Yun Zunlai back to the floating island. Yun Zunlai kneeled on the ground, completely bewildered. It's actually pretty funny. This guy had been hiding under the bed. Everyone was stunned. It feels like a real fantasy. If I hadn't experienced it myself, who would believe that the king of assassins from the southern wilderness was actually beaten so badly? Even Lord Yun couldn't understand. I had already retracted my spiritual energy, held my breath, and stopped my heartbeat. How did you find me? The man smiled faintly. It's simple. I heard the sound of your blood flowing. The two people beside him were stunned. What is this? Before Yun Zun could come to his senses, the man grabbed Yun Zun. What exactly is your purpose in coming to the Great Yan dynasty? Yun Zun was covered in sweat. If you spare my life, I'll tell you the information. Before he finished speaking, the man directly twisted Yun Zunlai's neck. Forget it, I won't ask. Zhongling looked at Yun Zunlai's corpse. This prince is too terrifying. Mother. I want to go home. Soon after, a stone tablet fell from the sky into a lake. Several large characters were clearly carved on it. Acting as heaven's will, Yama, immediately. The man carrying Zhongling also fell. The man, in a good mood after solving the problem, said, let's go home and eat. Zhongling, however, curiously asked about the inscription just now. What does Yama mean? Nothing, it's just a code name I used back home. There's a saying in my hometown. That is when the king of hell wants someone to die at midnight. Who dares to keep them alive until dawn? By the way, don't speak out of turn when we get back, understand? Zhongling was startled and quickly nodded. Seeing how obedient she was, the man couldn't help but ruffle her hair. Children should listen to adults. Zhongling blushed, tidied her hair, and said, I'm not that young anymore, actually. The man waved his hand without turning around. Alright, you're very grown up. Hearing this, Zhongling blushed again. After a moment, the two returned to where the Imperial Guards were. The man patted his chest, feigning relief. I found it. That was close. That's the love token His Majesty gave me. Zhongling was speechless. Truly worthy of a prince. He lies without blushing. Immediately, everyone lined up. The man shouted loudly, "Alright, let's go home." The head of the Imperial Guard, Lu Yen, had a displeased look. This prince is too reckless. I wonder if those Blood Cloud Tower thugs are gone yet. Young general, you were too rash earlier. You're not usually like this. Why are you letting the prince act so recklessly today? Zhongling has unspoken difficulties. Facing this elder sister who watched him grow up, he can only smile and remain silent. Suddenly, Zhongling seems to remember something. Sister Lu, it's because we encountered the Ziyunla assassins. Did you think of him? Lu Yen lowered her head without responding, but her face was full of heartache. Zhongling sighed softly. If it weren't for your fiancé, staying behind alone to hold off the assassins from Shuyan Tower, that town would probably have had no survivors. She had heard her mother mention it before, when Sister Lu led her troops to reinforce. The blood-soaked man at the town entrance, clearly already dead, yet still stood firmly there. His Majesty once said, he was the backbone of DaiYan. Speaking of this, Lu Yen was already in tears. It's over, don't mention it. But the man ahead, suddenly smiled. A royal guard curiously asked, is there some kind of happy occasion for the prince? The man turned his head and replied, nothing much. I just feel like I did something really meaningful earlier. So, rest easy. That day, she was anxiously preparing to leave when Feiyu casually said, her father, Zhong Yangming, couldn't help but ask where she was going. Feiyu casually said, Zhongling had no choice but to tell the truth. You need to go to the palace to take care of His Highness the Prince. Zhong Yangming was puzzled. The prince is indulgent and idle. Besides, he's protected by the Imperial Guards in the palace. Why are you so concerned? Unexpectedly, Zhongling was unhappy. You haven't spent time with His Highness the Prince. How could you casually comment on someone else? After finishing speaking, Zhongling left directly. Zhong Yangming was left completely confused. This girl clearly hated the prince yesterday. How did she change overnight? This is not good. Little did he know, the prince, whom he considered idle, had destroyed the assassin organization that had plagued the Great Yan dynasty for decades with a single gesture yesterday. At this moment, His Highness the Prince was leisurely enjoying his afternoon. Not only do I have maidservants feeding me fruit, but I can also watch Ultraman fight monsters using the system. This life of having everything provided for me, this easy life, it's simply amazing. It's a pity that the head of the Imperial Guard, Lu Yen, lacks understanding. His Majesty fights on the front lines, yet her husband is indulging in pleasure. It's truly infuriating. Fortunately, at this moment, Major General Zhongling has arrived, but in this outfit, she's hardly the Zhongling I know. Zhongling's face turned red, and the exquisite red robe made her look incredibly graceful. The man was stunned. Little girl, what are you doing here? Zhongling answered seriously, I've come to protect the secret, my prince. The man waved his hand repeatedly. Go somewhere cool and stay there. Who asked you to protect me? What if this guy slips up and exposes himself? The scene suddenly fell into silence. Everyone looked at the man, stunned. Is the prince trying to get himself killed? With the Major General's temper, who can stop him later? To everyone's surprise, Zhongling blushed and said, I'm not leaving. I'm staying right here. This is His Majesty's order. Upon hearing this, the Imperial Guards behind her looked at her in disbelief. It's over, it's over. The Major General has lost her mind. But then again, the prince really is good-looking. Forget how His Majesty was charmed by him. Now even the Major General has been seduced. At this moment, someone suddenly reported at the door. The floating island of Blood Cloud Tower fell from the sky. Could it be? Is that the headquarters of Blood Cloud Tower His Majesty has been searching for in vain? Zhongling quickly walked over and asked, what's going on? Lu Yen looked shocked. Major General, the branch of Blood Cloud Tower has been destroyed. Zhongling was unfazed. Got it. So what now? Seeing her so calm and indifferent, Lu Yen is speechless. Isn't this a big deal? Young general, aren't you surprised at all? Zhongling then realized he was too calm. He quickly forced a laugh and said, the Blood Cloud Tower branch was destroyed. That's good news. A man witnessed this scene. This girl is too fake. Her acting. She'll be exposed any minute now. But Lu Yen looked serious. If it were usual, it would indeed be good news. But now that the Blood Cloud Tower branch has been destroyed within the Great Yan dynasty, what if their headquarters attacks the Great Yan dynasty? And there's also that poster, the so-called King of Assassins. What if he goes to the northern frontier to cause trouble for His Majesty? The men in Zhongling snickered. just relying on that king of assassins hiding under the bed. Lu Yan is stunned. The young general is actually sneaking a smile. Shouldn't she be worried? She couldn't help but ask Zhongling, the young general, what are you laughing at? At such a critical moment of life and death, could it be that she has become depraved? Zhongling was startled, realizing she had just acted inappropriately. Seeing the two staring at her with disapproving faces, Zhongling immediately started stammering, not knowing how to explain. Fortunately, at that moment, a man appeared behind her. He directly slapped her on the head. I could hear it clearly from beside her. With the country in crisis, you're still grinning. How inappropriate. Zhongling lowered her head. That was close. I almost gave myself away just now. The man then turned to Lu Yan and said, Captain Lu, children don't understand. Don't argue with her. Besides, the great dynasty is prosperous. You don't need to worry too much. Alright, you can go ahead and get busy. I'll take care of this girl. Then, the man left with Zhongling. The remaining group of Imperial Guards were discussing among themselves. The commander, if I remember correctly, you watched General Xiao grow up, right? How did it end up like this, where it seems like you're the outsider now? They've only known each other for less than 2 days. Lu Yan had a serious expression on her face. It seems the problem is more serious than I imagined. You should write a letter to the Grand General immediately. By the way, tell Chancellor Zhong. This morning, Zhongling almost gave himself away. He was scolded by the man. But suddenly, Zhongling knelt in front of the man, and asked him to take him as a disciple. Unfortunately, the man's strength wasn't gained through cultivation, so he couldn't teach Zhongling. The days passed by peacefully, one after another. Half a month later, the man went back to the mountain to roast wild boar again. Zhongling accompanied him. Suddenly, an imperial guard shouted as he rushed over from a distance. She happily told Lu Yan, Commander, the latest news from the Tianji Pavilion, Shuyan Tower has been destroyed. All the powerful people have been killed, and there is proof from the household head. Lu Yan was stunned. Over the past half-month, I've been worried that Blood Cloud Tower would attack the dynasty. Now you tell me they're gone. In a daze, Lu Yan's face was already filled with tears. Finally, someone avenged her fiancé. Zhongling, beside her, also sincerely thanked the man. The man, chewing on wild boar meat, said, That has nothing to do with me. If you're bored, cut some meat for me. Zhongling muttered, How boring. But she still obediently picked up the small knife. On the other side, at the northern border of Beijing, Empress was chatting with General Zhong Lishuang. That old man is really tough. Last time, he was injured by my sword energy. If he comes again, I will definitely chop him down. Of course. Your Majesty is the unparalleled, most talented person under heaven. A mere old man is no match for you. At this time, a servant presented 2 letters. These were sent half a month ago, by Lu Yan and Zhong Yangming. Upon opening Zhong Lishuang's, she was shocked. The Shuyan Tower branch in DaiYan had been destroyed. Immediately, the Empress looked worried. This is bad. The headquarters of the Blood Cloud Tower might take action. The next moment, Zhong Lishuang's face suddenly turned full of anger. The Empress took another letter. Zhongling is infatuated with Prince Zhong's looks, spending every day carefully dressing up to accompany him. The Empress knew that Prince Zhong was quite handsome, but no matter how handsome he was, he shouldn't be doing this. Zhong Lishuang angrily slammed her fist into the stone pillar in front of her. Damn girl, if I don't make your butt blossom when you get back, I'm not your mother. But then, a loud noise came from the distance. Zhong Lishuang was stunned. Did my punch have that much power? When everyone saw clearly, they realized that the southern barbarians had launched another attack. An elderly man wearing a mask took the lead. With my power, I transform into spiritual light. Strike my soldiers, march straight into the enemy's land. As soon as the words were spoken, the barbarian soldiers roared and charged forward. Zhong Lishuang quickly told the Empress, Leave the defense of the city to me. You go deal with that old fool. As soon as the words were said, the Empress turned into a fleeting shadow, like a sharp blade. She directly pierced through the strange purple aura of the barbarian elder. The barbarian soldiers were stunned. How could they possibly withstand this power? The Empress paid no heed. She directly appeared before the barbarian elder and shouted, Jia Su, are you truly seeking death? The great Yan Empress. I am merely fighting for a future for our man country. My task is unfinished. I will not die. The Empress directly thrusts her sword towards the elder. Man's future will be destroyed in your hands. The elder struggles to defend himself, but is clearly outmatched. He spits out a large mouthful of blood. Seeing this, the Empress wears a confident expression. You shouldn't have left the barbarian kingdom. Without the protection of the national formation, you're no match for me. But then, the old man suddenly revealed a sinister smile. As expected of the Empress of DaiYan, truly peerless in beauty, At that moment, a sudden change occurred. A large formation suddenly materialized between the two. Blood-red power flew continuously from the old man's palm. The formation instantly surrounded the Empress and her group. Is this a sealing formation? So you spat blood earlier to carve the formation in midair. The old man looked pleased. Not bad. This formation was set by me. It's enough to trap you for 10 days or half a month. The Black Soul Palace paid a hefty price to have me delay you. I'm sure by now, the old man from the Black Soul Hall's poisonous swamp must have already entered the Great Yen territory. Poor people of the Great Yen Imperial City. The Empress is unleashing her full power. Jia Su, if the Great Yan's people suffer, I will have your entire barbarian nation buried with them. On the ground, Zhong Lishuang is bravely fighting, charging toward the Empress. But the Empress suddenly roars, don't come closer. Hold the border, don't let the barbarians break through. And she herself is sitting upright at this moment. I don't understand, is this worth it to you? Using this blood-burning soul-sealing array, you will have no more chance of breaking through your cultivation realm. Hee hee, of course it's worth it. The waters of the Great Yen dynasty run too deep. Our barbarian nation just wants to stay far away from you now. That reward is capital. Hearing this, the Empress took a deep breath. The Blood Cloud Tower headquarters revenge, the Black Soul Temple's threat. It's all very annoying, but she had to calm down. She had to find a way to escape and return to the capital to provide support. The old man was somewhat surprised. Worthy of being the Empress. She calmed down and prepared herself so quickly. It's a pity for those innocent civilians. But there's nothing we can do, everything is for the barbarian kingdom. On the other side, above the ruins of the Blood Cloud Tower, a teleportation array opens. A young man says to the elderly person beside him, Master, could this have been done by the Great Dynasty? No, they don't have that kind of ability. Let's go. Now the Empress is being held up by her old comrade. This is our perfect opportunity. Let's go to Qingdan Mountain. Little did they know, the man was right there, enjoying a carefree life of indulgence. He needed to keep eating to maintain his energy. The man suddenly realized that the head of the Imperial Guards, Lu Yan, was missing. I think she wanted to bring the good news of the Blood Cloud Tower's destruction. And take it back to the palace. At this moment, at the entrance of Qingyan town, and the leader of the Imperial Guards, Lu Yan, was violently thrown and smashed against the statue. He glared fiercely at the two before him. I've long heard that the Imperial Guards of the Great Dynasty are all battle-hardened veterans. Then, seizing the opportunity to massacre the people of Great Yen, Xiang Yuan said to his disciple, he was smashed heavily against the statue, his mouth full of blood. But then, a voice suddenly came from beside him. What do you intend to do to my captain of the guard? Gu Hongmao could only raise a hand to barely block it. He reached out and pinched her chin. His other hand held a pill taken from his system. You must let the young general take you away. The Huajing family are veterans who serve the Empress. I will fight to the death to let you leave. I just want to kill the poison swamp elder with one palm before you. Why are you in such a hurry to get yourself killed? Only now does he realize his arm has already healed. I'll buy you some time to escape. Zhongling suddenly unleashed the sword intent prototype, sparks ignite the planes. He's invincible at the same realm. If his realm is higher than mine, fine, but he's even grasped the sword intent prototype. A small teleportation portal opened in front of him. His own hand might be gone. Gu Hongmao returned to the poison swamp elder's side. Zhongling listened with a sense of schadenfreude, still babbling even as death approaches. You only Zhongling knew the man's perverse tastes, but Sister Lu seemed to genuinely believe him. Otherwise, if he's hit by the prince's AoE attack, it's all over. The poison swamp elder watched this scene. Then have them leave first, even if you're going to kill me. Are you out of your mind, old man? If you don't leave, how can I make a move? The surrounding space began to subtly twist. Feeling this terrifying power, the toxic swamp elder stuttered. It started vibrating with a crackling sound. It was a deafening roar. The man looked down at him. You people never want to listen, do you? I really didn't want to reveal my strength. I just simply wanted to get rid of this captain of the guard. Is that so difficult? The man slapped him again several times. You scared me, you know. It completely shattered my expectations. She looked at the man's back. The poison swamp beneath that old man's butt. This is the nether poison swamp that I summoned by burning my lifespan. Just feel it for yourself. We just need to avoid causing trouble. They were all terrified. This is completely beyond reason. He spent 30 years of his life to cast this nether poison swamp. This swamp can corrode one's body and soul, but the man took a bath and came out unharmed. He even gave the poison swamp elder a thumbs up. That's a good trick. It even helps exfoliate. But speaking of which, is this thing really that powerful? Having said that, the man set his sights on the poisoned swamp elder's disciple, Gu Hongmao. Gu Hongmao was so scared that he collapsed to the ground. He cried and begged the man not to come closer, but the man directly grabbed his collar. He threw him into the swamp. Immediately, Gu Hongmao let out a miserable scream. After a short while, he lost his breath and sank. The toxic swamp elder watched, utterly stunned, as the man curiously toyed with the venom. "Who exactly are you?" he muttered in disbelief. The man, however, directly applied the poison as a face mask. The poisoned swamp elder trembled with fear. He stammered for a long time, unable to speak. The man removed the mask. He asked Zhongling, who was standing nearby, "Little girl, how is it? Is it dead?" Zhongling was speechless. When did His Royal Highness become so vain? The man shrugged. "What do you little girl know? Only by looking a bit more handsome can you tempt the Empress." Saying that, he turned to the poisoned swamp elder. "May I ask you something? How much longer do you have to live?" The poisoned swamp elder was terrified. "What do you mean? Nothing. This swamp of yours is quite impressive, so how many more times can you use it? If I give you the elixir to extend your life, can you keep doing skincare for me?" The poisoned swamp elder was both ashamed and angry. "You really are a beast. A man can be killed, but not humiliated." "Aye, the poisoned swamp elder said, then slapped his forehead with his palm. He instantly breathed his last. Zhongling and Lu Yen were both stunned. One of the 6 evil kings of the Black Soul Hall actually just killed himself from being angered by the prince. The man, confused, shrugged and asked, "Why did he commit suicide? I was so sincere, I even wanted to spare his life." The two of them were embarrassed and couldn't help but complain. "Your Highness, just be a human being." Then, Zhongling suggested to the man, "The prince, you should really think about how to destroy the body." The man looked at the large ravine on the ground. "This noise is a bit loud. If I remember correctly, if we keep going in this direction, we should reach the DaiYan dynasty, right?" Zhongling nodded slightly. The man immediately unleashed his momentum again. Startled, Zhongling quickly asked, "What are you going to do?" "Destroy the body and erase the traces." Saying that, the man threw a punch. An incredibly powerful force shot straight out, cutting through the heavens and earth. Zhongling and Lu Yen quickly raised their hands. They tried to block the swirling wind, and then, the man exhaled again. Immediately, a tornado connecting to the sky surged forward. Zhongling was completely stunned. "How exactly do you understand the term, destroying the body and erasing all traces?" The man smiled faintly. "As long as the topography and environment are completely altered, and no trace of the past can be seen, it's called destroying the body and eliminating the evidence." When the dust settled, everything before him was indeed calm as water. Zhongling really didn't want to complain anymore. This is simply changing the world, right? At this time, the man suddenly remembered. Wouldn't the townspeople see what's happening outside? Lu Yen then explained with a smile, "Don't worry, Your Highness. There's a defensive magic array outside the town. You can't see outside." The man finally relaxed. "You scared me. I thought our leisurely time was over." "Alright, I'll wait for you in the woods nearby. Remember to bring some wine over when you're done." Lu Yen watched the man's receding figure and couldn't help but sigh. The prince is truly extraordinary. He's so strong, yet willingly lives off others. He just acts like a carefree, heartless idle prince. She patted the sculpture beside her. "How wonderful, isn't it?" At that moment, the slow-to-react villagers rushed out holding hose. Suddenly, everyone discovered that the 2 original mountains were gone. Lu Yen smiled. "The old mayor is safe. Let's go back." The mountains went to pay New Year's calls and haven't returned yet. At this moment, this girl was chattering away, telling stories about men. The head of the Imperial Guard suddenly remembered. Could it be that the bad things we secretly said behind their backs back then? Can he hear all of it? Hearing this, the man walking ahead suddenly spoke up. "Of course he can. You go home and complain about me ruining the country and the people, using my looks to seduce His Majesty. By the way, you also said I want everything, what's in the bowl and what's in the pot, and that I'm messing around with that little brat Zhongling." Zhongling immediately looked doubtful. "Sister Lu Yen, what are you daydreaming about?" Lu Yen immediately knelt down. "Sorry, Your Highness. Sorry, Major General." The man waved his hand. "It's fine, it's just a misunderstanding." Zhongling had a playful look on his face. "I didn't expect Sister Lu Yen, who looks so tough, to be this gossipy at home." Wait, at home? Zhongling suddenly realized something was wrong. "Your Highness, you're at the prince's residence. Can you still hear Sister Lu Yen talking at home?" "Of course, you, Sister Lu. Behind the scenes, you're such a chatterbox, always going on and on. It's basically like a public embarrassment." Lu Yen was completely stunned. The man was clearly doing it on purpose, making you roast me. He made it so awkward. Soon after, the group returned to the Zhong residence. The man pointed to the door angrily. Go back. Your Highness, I also want to go to the palace to eat. No way. You've been at the palace these past few days. Your father scolds me every night because of it. He's driving me crazy. Lu Yen was completely helpless. If something sneaky happens at night, wouldn't it be heard loud and clear? Zhong Ling, however, looked at the man with an expectant pleading expression. Your Highness, let me go play in the palace. Don't be so stingy. No, don't try that on me. You have parents and still don't cherish them. I've had no parents since I was little. I don't even have that. You little brat, you really don't know how lucky you are. Hearing this, Zhong Ling and Lu Yen were both stunned. I didn't expect the prince's past to be so tragic. But the man waved his hand. Alright, it's all in the past. I'm very happy now. Zhong Ling, just be obedient, and agree to go home. The man affectionately ruffled her hair. Good girl, go back now. Just then, Zhong Ling's father, Zhong Yangming, suddenly appeared, storming into the hall. What are you doing? Your Highness, you are the Emperor's consort. Do you deserve the Emperor? Upon hearing this, Lu Yen immediately became displeased. Lord Zhong, how can you speak like that? How can you casually slander others? Zhong Yangming was so frightened that he kept waving his hands. But Lu Yen only grew more and more angry. You're in such a high position, yet you judge without understanding the facts. I'm so disappointed in you. Zhong Yangming slumped to the ground, never expecting such a loyal, righteous, and upright woman would actually fall for the prince's charms. Zhong Ling also seized the opportunity to say, the prince even asked me to go home and have dinner with you, and you would do this? Linger, Zhong Yangming stammered, but couldn't say anything. The man didn't bother to explain, simply said goodbye and prepared to leave. Zhong Ling grabbed Lu Yan's arm. Dad, you eat dinner by yourself tonight. Zhong Yangming mumbled in grievance. Oh, heavens and earth. What's wrong with the world? The southern refugees haven't been dealt with yet. And now my daughter is disobedient. What should we do? After a moment, Zhong Yangming stood up to prepare to return to the manor. Unexpectedly, the three princes returned shortly after. Soon after, at a pavilion inside the Zhong residence, the man looked at the table full of delicious dishes, unable to stop the saliva from flowing. Zhong Yangming held the last dish, saying, Please, everyone, enjoy the meal, while Zhong Ling covered his mouth and giggled. Your Highness, this dish my father used this dish back then, to win my mother's heart. A man gave her a sharp rap on the head. Such disrespect. How can you talk about your father like that? Zhong Ling smiled and nodded. Zhong Yangming was completely dumbfounded. Why is my daughter so afraid of the prince? Forget it. Let's apologize and eat. Your Highness, I apologize to you. I offer you this drink. The man also raised his glass and drank heartily. Immediately, he picked up a bite and put it into his mouth. Savoring the delicious taste on his tongue, the man was in a great mood. He gave a thumbs up and praised. The taste is truly amazing. The man kept eating, thinking, what is life? This is what life is. What does a life mean? This is what a life means. Zhong Yangming was momentarily confused. As expected, you can't judge people by appearances. But this obsession with eating, drinking, and entertainment is really strange. Just then, the man suddenly muttered, and Zhong Yangming was taken aback. Your Highness, please speak frankly. That is, I wonder if I could frequently come to your house for dinner, to eat the food you cook yourself. Your culinary skills are exceptional. Zhong Yangming didn't speak, but inwardly he was complaining. To let me, the Minister of Revenue, be your cook. How is that possible? Absolutely impossible. The next second, the man directly slammed a ring onto the table. I personally contribute 1 million spirit stones to the Ministry of Revenue for disaster relief for the southern refugees. Zhong Yangming immediately changed his expression. Your Highness, what would you like to eat tomorrow? I happen to be free tomorrow and will personally pick the ingredients. I guarantee you'll enjoy it. 0. Go help your father buy a set of chef's clothes. The prince's meal must never be taken lightly. Zhong Ling and Lu Yen were stunned. Isn't this the national treasure of face-changing? Until that day, Zhong Lishuang stood on the city wall, gazing from afar at the trapped Empress. The Empress remained calm for half a month. Finally, the moment of breakthrough arrived. The Grand Elder of the Barbarians quickly signaled the soldiers to retreat. The Empress is about to ascend to the 9th stage, the Saint Realm. In a moment, the Empress slightly opened her eyes and let out a cold snort. Immediately, an aura like a collapsing mountain and raging sea swept out. The barbarian soldiers fled for their lives, afraid of being left behind to be the first casualties. The next second, the defensive formation exploded with a thunderous sound, completely shattered by the Empress. The Empress, wielding her long sword, stood majestic and imposing. Old thing. You're running really fast, but no matter how fast you are, can you escape the sword chi from a 9th rank saint? The Empress swung her sword, and the cold sword chi directly froze the earth soldier running behind her. The barbarian elder gritted his teeth and pushed forward at full speed, but suddenly, he felt a chill on his back. His heart jolted. He never expected a 9th rank expert to be so terrifying. He quickly turned around and unleashed his lifelong mastery. He conjured a giant barbarian to block the attack with his hand, but the giant was like foam, easily torn apart by the sword energy. The old man, like a kite with a broken string, fell straight to the ground, smashing a huge crater. A moment later, the old man shakily got to his feet. The mask on his face has already shattered. A 9th rank powerhouse, terrifying indeed. On the other side, the Empress did not continue the pursuit. Instead, she returned to the city walls. She issued an order for the deputy general to stay behind and handle the aftermath. Once everything was settled, he was to return to the capital. As for her, she took Zhong Lishuang and headed back early. They prepared to deal with the unrest on the road. Zhong Lishuang comforted the Empress. "Your Majesty, don't worry too much. There are formations in place everywhere now, which will at least delay the Poison Swamp Elder's actions." But the Empress remained anxious. The Poison Swamp Elder is ultimately an 8th order Transcendence Realm cultivator. The formations won't be able to stop him. Now we can only hope that the city hasn't suffered too much damage. Soon after, the two arrived at the small town from before, but they found that the 2 mountains that should have been here were gone. Zhongli and the others were dumbfounded. The Empress observed for a while before guessing. There's no pile of earth nearby, but the distant mountains are covered in a layer of dust. That person probably smashed the 2 mountains to pieces, and scattered them as dust. One strike. Your Majesty, you've already reached the 9th stage of Saint Realm. Compared to this person, who is stronger? The Empress let out a wry smile. "You think too highly of me. I can't even sense this person's strength. How could I possibly be their opponent? Your Majesty, could the person who made the move be a 10th stage saint? No. The most frightening part is this. If they were a saint, I would be able to sense it. Who possesses this power surpassing the 10th level? I'm afraid they'd rack their brains and still not guess. The one who made the move was the Empress's husband, who has no cultivation. A short while ago, after the man angered the Poison Swamp Elder to suicide, he returned to the Zhong residence for dinner. Who knew Zhong Lishuang's husband, Zhong Yangming, cooked so deliciously, all for a lifetime supply of delicious meals? The man directly took out $1 million worth of spirit stones. He gave them to Zhong Yangming for disaster relief for the refugees. Zhong Yangming held the spirit stones tightly in his hand. He looked at his daughter's uncomprehending gaze. Zhong Yangming really wanted to complain. "You don't understand a thing. The refugees can't be refused or settled. Now that he has the money, even if they ask him to be their father, it's fine. By the way, Your Highness, is there any problem with these spirit stones? I hope they're not something you secretly took from the palace." The man waved his hand. "Don't worry. These spirit stones were given to me as compensation by someone else. Just don't say they came from me. This is my private money. It wouldn't be good if His Majesty found out." "Rest assured, Your Highness. I'll definitely keep it a secret." The man breathed a sigh of relief. "Then I'll let you go. You don't know how hard I worked for this money. What those people did to me was outrageous." Listening to the man's indignant tone, Zhong Yangming misconstrued things. He thought the man had suffered some cruel flogging. He quickly comforted the man, thanking him for his efforts. Zhong Ling and Lu Yen were left stunned. Did the Blood Cloud Tower force you to wipe out his entire family? And emptied his treasure vault suddenly? The man asked. "What does Minister Zhong plan to do with this money?" "I plan to buy food and supplies for disaster relief and send them over. And also fund the construction of temporary shelters, so they have a place to stay while waiting for the harvest." The man shook his head. "This won't work. It's too wasteful, and it's prone to accidents. Why don't you try using labor for relief?" Zhong Yangming was stunned. "What do you mean, using labor for relief?" "Look, the refugees in the southern border, they lack everything, but they don't lack people, right? Why not use this money to hire them to work?" "How can I hire others? Why not? Instead of letting a large group of people gather and idle, causing trouble, why not exchange the money for food and goods? Use it as wages to hire them to repair bridges and roads, and cultivate wasteland. Let them fill their stomachs, build up the great yen, and they won't have the energy to cause trouble. What's not to like? And this method can separate and scatter the refugees from the same hometown. It prevents people who know each other from gathering together, gaining courage, and causing trouble. Just think about it, really think about it." Zhong Yangming felt as if struck by lightning, and suddenly understood. This is simply a win on so many fronts. "Brilliant, Your Highness. If I get greedy in the future, just call on me. I can't speak for anything else, but in terms of skill, throughout the entire Great Yen dynasty, I say I'm first, no one dares to say second. Zhong Yangming slapped his chest with a resounding bang. The man smiled slightly. I was just waiting for you to say that. Later, I'm going to have a midnight snack. No problem. Hee hee hee. The two exchanged a smile, their expressions full of amusement. The two girls felt something was off. But when she returned triumphantly from her campaign in the northern frontier, the flying fish message, she discovered that the man was actually having an affair with her head of the Imperial Guard, Yu Shuiman, and was also involved with the daughter of her beloved general, Zhong Lishuang. The two of them even showed great respect and flattery towards this soft-rice man. The man was about to reject their eager advances, but suddenly felt a murderous aura approaching. He looked carefully. Well, it's his Empress wife who has returned. The Empress's sidekick, Zhong Lishuang, was pointing at her own daughter, scolding her. Zhongling, I see you haven't been beaten in days. Your butt is itching, isn't it? The three people who were playing around were all stunned. Zhongling was so scared that the dumpling in her hand fell to the ground. It's over. Why did mother come back so quickly? If only I hadn't been so dizzy. That should be His Majesty, right? The captain of the Imperial Guard, Lu Yen, quietly explained. I used to have the same misunderstanding as your father, about you and His Highness the Prince. I even wrote to the general about it. The man, hearing this, was immediately terrified. What the hell? Captain Lu, aren't you putting me in danger? Zhong Lishuang saw a few people still daring to whisper. She was so angry that she strode forward. It was clear she was about to hit someone. Zhongling was scared and hid behind the man. The man anxiously shouted, Little brat, where are you hiding? Hiding behind your sister Lu. Don't you think this situation isn't big enough? Zhongling timidly explained, Your Highness, Prince. Just help block her. The Emperor is here, she won't lay a hand on you. Are you sure? The man looked at Zhong Lishuang standing in front of him, and angrily told him, Prince, move aside. With a height of nearly 2 meters and muscles that were terrifying, she was basically the Hulk from Barbie. The man couldn't help but sigh. Minister Zhong, you are a real man. He could only advise, General Zhong, hitting a child in public is likely to leave her with psychological trauma. Zhong Lishuang ignored him, clenching her fists and threatening, Your Highness, I'm speaking reasonably to you out of respect for His Majesty, but that doesn't mean I dare not make a move. Hearing this, Zhongling quickly threw herself into her mother's arms, saying, No, mother, you absolutely cannot attack the prince. If you must fight, fight me instead. Lu Yan also stepped forward to stop her. General Zhong, you mustn't. Please calm down and reconsider. Zhong Lishuang was a little bewildered by their attitudes. You foolish girl. This is not something you should be concerned with. Little did they know, what Zhongling was thinking was, what if the prince reacts? What will happen to my father and me? At this moment, a strong young man suddenly stepped forward and asked, Your Highness, is there something wrong? The man quickly reassured everyone, this is someone I know well, don't be nervous. Everyone, go ahead and disperse. Then we'll go first. Your Highness, if you need anything, just call out. Your Highness, it's getting late. Why don't you rest at my residence? No, I'm attending a banquet and must leave first. Seeing the man's friendly demeanor with the people, Zhong Lishuang and the others were stunned. Is the prince's charm really that strong? These commoners are all men. The men watched the back of their empress wife. My wife is so beautiful. Look at her graceful figure. At this moment, the empress suddenly returned and looked deeply at him. The man was already mesmerized. Look at those eyes, like stars. Stunning. Suddenly, the empress leaned in and asked, I'm really curious. What did you do to make the people of Qingyan town admire you so much? The man smiled slightly. This was a question he was really good at answering. When a woman starts to become curious about a man, it means she's already lost. The empress looked at him, completely confused. This guy asked himself a question. If you don't want to answer, fine. What's so funny? In response to the empress's question, the man tells her, just spend the money. I'm just paying to fix their road. Where did you get the money? If I remember correctly, your expenses aren't that much. The man immediately bursts into laughter. Your Majesty, don't forget, I am now your husband. During this time, I've been receiving gifts like crazy. However, this money actually came from looting Blood Cloud Manor. The Empress, of course, doesn't know that the mysterious expert who destroyed Blood Cloud Manor is her husband. She only said angrily, It seems there are quite a few wealthy people in our court, but simply relying on road construction, it's not like the common people would be that grateful to you. Zhong Lishuang thinks so too. This prince is unlearned and incompetent. How could he be so beloved by the people? At this moment, Zhongling suddenly spoke up. That's because His Highness the Prince has been able to help the people of Qing Town live better lives. As soon as these words were spoken, the Empress and her mother looked at her with questioning expressions. Zhongling quickly explained, the wine from Qinyan town is delicious, but it's only sold in the imperial city. It only allows the common people to live slightly better lives. It's not exactly great yet. The prince is trying to find a way to do some branding and packaging. Then, Lu Yen recited a slogan, Qinyan mountain water. Good water makes good wine. The DaiYan brand, a century-old wine. Qinyan wine, a great wine. The empress drank it and said it was good, with your majesty's name on it, and with Minister Zhong, the Minister of Revenue, vouching for it. Qinyan wine has been renamed DaiYan Empress wine. It has become the most high-end wine in the imperial city. Now, a jar of this wine is priceless. It's just your majesty, I'm borrowing your title. For this wine. I had no other choice. After all, I'm just a powerless nobody. Zhongling and Lu Yen were speechless beside him. Yes, you are a nobody, but you did scare the poisoned swamp elder to death, and punched through several mountains with one blow. You really are a nobody. Of course, they only dare to complain secretly in their hearts, but the empress wasn't happy. What useless person. You are my man, the Prince of DaiYan. No one has the right to judge what kind of useless person you are. If anyone bullies you in the future, I'll chop them down with a sword. The man was completely smitten. Damn it, she's flirting with me again. Someone, take away my soft rice bowl and replace it with an iron one. This soft rice, I'm definitely going to enjoy it. The man immediately spoke to the empress with sincerity. Your majesty, you are as beautiful as a fish sinking, a goose falling, the moon hiding, and the flowers shy. You are a woman of unmatched beauty, unparalleled in the world. The empress remained calm, her tone slick and practiced. I have never liked such flowery words. But immediately, that subtle smile betrayed her. Zhong Lishuang patted the man's shoulder. Prince, the empress has always been strong-willed and resolute since she was young. That behavior towards a young lady is useless, you know. The man didn't respond, looking at the empress's back. Don't think I can't see you behind that veil. What's useful or useless? That's my empress wife being proud and aloof. She doesn't say it out loud, but she likes it in her heart. He paused, then suddenly told Zhongling behind him. Your mother doesn't know anything, making everything so awkward. Zhong Lishuang in front suddenly suggested to the empress. Your majesty, how about we go back to the city later and have a simple meal at my house? Sure, I look forward to Minister Zhong's cooking. Not long after, the group arrived at the Zhong residence. The man watched his wife's back. He suddenly felt that her strength seemed to have improved. Wang Kai, how is Empress Si Ruoyan's cultivation level now? Respected master, Empress Si Ruoyan is currently at the first level of the 9th rank Saint Realm. The man smiled. After this trip, not only has her cultivation improved, but she has also resolved the war in the northern border. My wife is amazing. General Zhong Lishuang took the empress back to her home for a meal. As soon as they entered, the aroma of food filled the air. She thought her husband was cooking himself. Knowing she was back, Zhongling silently stood behind her mother. Some things are better left unknown. Zhong Yangming sensed someone entering, and before seeing clearly, laughed. Your Highness, you're in for a treat today. I've prepared a golden-tailed jade fish, and here are a few of your favorite dishes. We won't stop drinking until we're drunk today. Only then did Empress and Zhong Lishuang realize that this entire table of food was specially prepared for the prince. This is ridiculous. How did even this person get attracted by the prince? At this moment, Zhong Yangming also turned around. When he saw the empress had arrived, he quickly awkwardly cupped his fists and bowed. The empress showed no displeasure. I'm here this time, just like before. Uncle Zhong, just treat me like I'm still that little girl who used to come to Zhong Manor to freeload. Zhong Yangming awkwardly scratched his head, stammering, not knowing what to say. I'll go get more bowls and chopsticks, your majesty, please have a seat first. After saying that, he ran off. Zhong Lishuang turned around and questioned them. What happened during the days when his majesty and I were not here? What exactly happened? The man was helpless. How could he have forgotten about this? If the empress finds out that I was the one who gave Zhong Yangming advice, discovered my talents, and asked me to help handle the state affairs, how can I explain? A moment later, everyone sat down. Zhong Lishuang suddenly teased, Zhong Yangming, you've put a lot of thought into this dish, it's very unique. The empress then picked up the cup in front of her. Is this the Qinyan wine? Yes, your majesty, it is indeed Qinyan wine. The empress smiled, I've had it before. But this is very delicious. Such a rare treasure, so this is the reason. It's not just the reputation, but also the quality itself. You're right, your majesty. Not only did Prince invest in the construction of the distillery in Qingzhen, and employ the locals, he also improved the brewing techniques in Qinyan town, and revitalized Qingzhen. He even voluntarily paid taxes. He set an example for the imperial merchants. The man helplessly covered his face, truly afraid of what he had feared. Help! Someone knock him out. I just want to live a quiet life, eating soft food. Who would have thought that Zhong Yangming would misunderstand? He thought the prince was just feeling shy. So he continued to praise, saying that if it's only this, it still doesn't fully demonstrate the prince's excellence. The man was immediately stunned. This guy still wants to talk. Regarding the matter of the southern border refugees, your highness devised the plan, and personally funded it. The price was merely satisfying your highness's appetite. It's nothing. The man now felt his whole body stiffening. He couldn't even smile. The empress, however, had a look of complete admiration on her face, seeing this. Zhong Yangming smiled slightly. Your highness, I can only help you up to this point. A man always knows what's on his mind. He just clearly wants to live off someone else. He really doesn't want to work at all. As expected, the empress asked, with such talent, why do you still say you're useless? The man felt a bit conflicted inside. How should I respond? Can I just say I was being lazy? If that were the case, the empress would probably assign me a lot of work. If I don't do it, she'll whip me. It's over. I'd have to say goodbye to my good life. Unexpectedly, during this simple dinner, Minister Zhong exposed me. I was incredibly embarrassed. Yet Zhong Yangming still looked proud. The empress pours herself another glass of wine. I didn't expect you to know how to brew wine. The man quickly declined. No, I only know a little. I'm more skilled at enjoying food, drink, and entertainment. The empress, however, spoke directly. There aren't many people who get praised by Uncle Zhong. Why have you been frowning the whole time? If I'm not mistaken, you only want to eat, drink, and have fun your whole life. And you're afraid of being made an official, toiling for great yen, right? Rest assured. The man suddenly didn't know what to say. I promised you a life of wealth and honor, free from worries about food and clothing, a carefree prince. I summoned you here with a talisman back then. I already owe you something, so there's no need for you to do anything. Just be happy. Upon hearing this, the man blushed slightly, silently thinking, oh my god. Stop teasing me. The empress suddenly spoke fiercely again. If anyone dares to gossip and call you useless, I wouldn't mind being a tyrant for once. Chop off a few heads. Shocking these seductive beauties in the court. Men feel like they're floating, like they're in paradise. Is this the feeling of being kept by the empress? This is amazing. Speaking of which, when the poisoned swamp elder, one of the 6 evil of the Black Soul Temple, died back in Qinyan town, you were there too, right? Tell me more. Yes, your majesty. After a while, Lu Yan had just finished recounting everything that happened. When the female general Zhong Lishuang excitedly stood up. Really fists? Did this peerless expert leave behind a name? Lu Yan's face was serious. And he also destroyed the Blood Cloud Tower headquarters. The Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion has confirmed that Yun Zun, the King of Assassins, is dead. Your Majesty finds it hard to believe what you said. Are you sure it's true? Lu Yan remembered her fiancé, murdered by the Blood Cloud Tower. Your Majesty, my grievance with the Blood Cloud Tower, you know it well. I wouldn't be mistaken about this. If I have the chance to meet the senior, Yan Wang, I will personally thank him properly, for his righteous act of acting on behalf of heaven. He solved the Great Yan Dynasty's major problem. Although I don't know whether Senior Yan Wang is friend or foe, but with him around, the benefits Yan received outweigh the drawbacks. Everyone present felt a surge of warmth. Only that man looked guilty. Yama, actually was his title back on Earth. This time, he just reused it. Zhong Yangming was still analyzing. The Black Soul Hall and the Blood Cloud Tower have oppressed the Yen for so many years. After Senior Yama intervened, at least from an outsider's perspective, it seemed that the senior had a deep connection with the Yen. Both Zhongling and Lu Yan, who knew the truth, smiled and said, that's right. With the presence of Lord Yama, at least it can make those who are overly ambitious think twice. As they spoke, the man and the empress continued their close interaction. Your Majesty really dotes on the prince. By the way, Your Majesty, now that you've returned, will you attend court the day after tomorrow? Of course. Why? The emperor must protect the prince a bit more. After all, the northern border war has been settled. The emperor no longer has an excuse to delay. According to the rules, tomorrow in the court, the emperor must allow the prince to meet the officials. The man was left confused. What does that mean? What does it mean to meet the officials? Only then did Zhong Yangming explain. According to the customs of the Great Yan Empire, His Majesty's wedding requires a meeting with the ministers, accompanied by the prince consort. In simple terms, it's like meeting the in-laws. The man looked at the empress. So, I will be in trouble, won't I? Zhong Yangming also interrupted, Your Majesty. Perhaps you should explain the reasons to the prince consort. The empress then looked at him sincerely and slowly said, marrying you, I'm giving myself an explanation. It's not simply using you as a shield. I hope what I'm about to say next won't upset you. This matter, we must start with the Grand Minister Lu Aotian. Speaking of Lu Aotian, the Empress's face is filled with murderous intent. She can't calm down at all. All of this. It all starts with Lu Aotian, the Chancellor of the Great Yan Dynasty. The Chancellor of the Great Yan Dynasty, named Lu Aotian. When my father hadn't gone missing, he was already in this position. He was also my foster father and teacher. The man almost laughed. Lu Aotian. Is that name for real? The year the late emperor went missing, my eldest brother ascended the throne. The barbarian nation moved south. He led the army in person and died in battle in the northern lands. The second emperor brother ascended the throne, and a rebellion broke out in the Black Soul Palace of the southern frontier. The chaos spread to the Great Yan, and he marched south to quell the uprising. He expanded the territory, but was poisoned and died in the end. With Lu Aotian's help, I ascended the throne as emperor. That year, I was 16. But Lu Aotian formed factions and sought personal gain. His influence was supreme in both the court and the government. If not for my secret plans. And his cultivation talent is quite good. In 2 years, he rose from nothing to become a Seventh Order Awakened. I'm afraid it will be difficult to regain the imperial power. At that time, on the Empress's 18th birthday, Lu Aotian came to see the Empress. Your Majesty, you are of marriageable age now. The late Emperor and I had an agreement regarding a marriage between your Majesty and my son. Shouldn't we put it on the agenda? You should also consider having an heir. It's alright, no rush. I kept delaying it. Until I accidentally learned about summoning talismans in the archives. That's how you came to the Great Yan Dynasty and became my imperial husband. Therefore, Lu Aotian will definitely make things difficult for you. The man pondered. No wonder she explained at the beginning that she wasn't using me as a shield. So it seems, it's really not. Otherwise, they would have kicked me out long ago. Seeing the man fall silent, the Empress thought he was scared. Don't worry. Although I have some reservations about Lu Aotian, I should still follow the rules. But if you don't want to, Lian will protect you. If you can't even protect yourself, how can you protect the great legacy left by your father and brothers? Hearing this, the man smiled and said, no need. I'll go. Anyway, with His Majesty's protection, in the court, how could Lu Aotian possibly execute me? Zhongling and Lu Yan almost spat out. He could execute you. Don't throw a tantrum in the court. Just ruin Lu Qingxiang's reputation and erase his traces. The Empress has no idea of a man's strength. She can only advise, you don't need to act this way. Moreover, the opportunity was seized by that arrogant Tian. I am worried. Although the Duke is a civil official, he is strangely hard to read. I find it difficult to see through his true level. Unless absolutely necessary, I don't want to fight him. At this moment, Zhong Yangming suddenly interjected. Your Majesty, I trust the prince. Although he seems reckless and seeks pleasure, he is actually an extremely troublesome character. A surprising move doesn't necessarily mean you'll lose. Upon hearing this, the man couldn't help but look at him. Is he complimenting me or criticizing me? Zhongling and the others echoed, Your Majesty. Don't worry, the prince won't lose out, since His Highness has made his decision. Your Majesty, why not just go along with it? The Empress didn't know the man's true intentions. He could only helplessly say, you two certainly have a lot of confidence in him. Because what father said makes sense. The prince is much harder to deal with. There might be no one in the world who can handle the prince. At this moment, the female general, Zhong Lishuang, finally spoke. Your Majesty, this is also an opportunity to confront Lu Aotian. Your realm has broken through, your confidence is stronger. You're not afraid of that old fool. The Empress is still a bit worried. I am truly concerned. What if something happens in the court before she could finish speaking? The man suddenly interrupted. Wife, I believe in you. The Empress fell silent for a long time. Aren't you afraid? The man immediately laughed. My wife can settle the northern border with a single sword. The Empress of the generation who rules the world, what is there to fear? Upon hearing this, the Empress smiled. She smiled brightly, her charm blooming like flowers, pink and fluttering. She stood up and turned to walk towards the door. Since you insist on this, I shall no longer persuade you. It seems these past few days, I don't know how many memorials have piled up. I must return to the palace and handle them quickly. The man clearly understood the Empress's feelings. This is called reciprocity. You can't let her flirt with you all the time. Shouldn't you flirt back a little? What's with the urgent need to process the memorials? He's clearly not being truthful. Heh, women. Zhongling and Lu Yan accompanied him as he prepared to return to the palace. Suddenly, the man sensed someone was following him. This guy is really adorably silly. He doesn't even realize he's been spotted. But was this sent by the Prime Minister? Forget it. If the enemy doesn't move, neither will I. Soon after, the man suddenly took off the contract ring from his left wrist. Zhongling and Lu Yan were both stunned. The contract ring is a powerful domain. The constraints left behind by summoning people from weaker realms are both laws and rules. According to the records, only a 10th rank saint level being has the possibility of severing them. Zhongling couldn't help but ask, Your Highness, what is this? Sometimes this thing gets skewed, making me very uncomfortable. I'll just change positions. Zhongling was completely dumbfounded. I didn't ask why you changed the location of the contract ring, but why you describe your shocking and vulgar actions so lightly. Lu Yen then explained, Your Highness, the young general is curious as to how you managed to remove the slave ring and even relocate it. The man didn't care, and took it off again. Didn't you see how I did it? Saying this, he switched hands. There, see? It's that simple. Just tear it off and put it back on. Both of them were speechless. When it reached the prince's mouth, it was just for fun. At this moment, the man looked at the black-clad figure still following behind him. Seeing the man approaching the palace, the man in black ran off in another direction. The man didn't care at all. When your strength is strong enough, you won't be bothered by the threats of ants. At this moment, Zhongling suddenly whispered to the man, Your Highness, are you planning to kill Lu Aojian directly? Wow, you're such a savage little brat. I'm just idle, why would I go around killing people? But Lu Aojian will definitely make things difficult for you in court. At that point, you'll be in a tough spot. Your Highness, you'll have no choice but to take action, and your strength will be exposed. Anyway, Your Highness, you're so powerful. Why not just raid the Prime Minister's residence tonight? Before Zhongling could finish speaking, the man immediately gave her a smack on the head. Zhongling covered her head and whimpered, Your Highness, you're like this. My brain is going to fry. I can tell your brain is all water, it's been soaked through. You were just saying Lu Aojian is going to target me, and now I'm going to take him out. Do you think being an empress is the same as being you? Zhongling was still a bit unhappy, muttering, Just talk it out calmly. Stop hitting my head all the time. Lu Yen secretly smiled to herself. In the past, the Major General was arrogant and wouldn't listen to anyone. Now, he's completely suppressed by His Highness the Prince. Truly, every man has his match. The man didn't even look back. I spoke nicely to you. What should I do if this little brat doesn't listen? Soon after, the man returned to his chambers and directly lay down on a chair. Wang Kai, let's watch a special effects blockbuster. Okay, master. Then the man told the two women, same old rules. Practice for an hour, then return to your own homes. As he spoke, the space around them suddenly flickered with electric light. The space around you has already been pressured by me. Now, begin practicing according to the method I've taught you. So, Zhongling and Lu Yen each struck a pose. This is just a body training technique tailored for them by men. There are absolutely no other intentions. That day, after an hour had passed, the man was finally able to practice for a while. But just then, the man suddenly sensed that the Empress and his wife were coming. She had brought a large group of people with her. The man stepped out of the room and was stunned by the scene in front of him. The Empress actually brought over 100 beautiful attendants with her. They were waiting in the courtyard, ready to greet the man as he came out. The Empress spoke directly. Prince, what are you still doing here? Let's go. Follow me into the palace to rest. The man felt helpless. All this fuss just to get me to go back to sleep. But the Empress turned and led him straight into the room. As soon as she entered the room, the Empress saw 2 puddles of water on the floor. She thought it was the man's sweat. She smiled and turned to praise him. Others think you only know how to indulge, but they can't see that you also work hard behind the scenes. So, how is it? Have you found a way to cultivate? The man felt a bit guilty. He pretended to be exhausted and relaxed his shoulders, saying, I still can't cultivate. He just casually moved his limbs a bit. The Empress was completely immersed in her own fantasy. She thought the man was just being modest. It's fine. Take your time. With me here, there won't be any surprises. The man was completely mesmerized by the Empress's smile. Wow, this mother-in-law's buffs are all wrong. How did she max out her flirting skills? Moments later, the Empress was half lying on the bed reading. Suddenly, she glanced at the man. Seeing him standing still, what are you still standing there for? Aren't you going to rest? The man then resolutely took off his coat. Then, she came to the Empress's side, lying stiffly like a dead fish, lying flat on the bed. The Empress couldn't help but laugh. This guy is really interesting. That night, the Empress extinguished the candle, removed her outer garment and lay down on the other side. Don't be so reserved. To dispel outside doubts, the U-League often stays overnight. You're acting as if I might eat you or something. No, it's just that it's the second time sharing a bed with a girl. I'm a little nervous. After all, since he was young, his adoptive father taught him that women only slow down the speed of drawing a sword. But the Empress suddenly asked, a little displeased. The second time? Then who was the first time with? It was also your Majesty's first time, before marching to the northern border. Did you forget? making a big deal out of it. My first and second times were also with you. The man is speechless. Isn't it you who's making a big deal out of it? You speak so oddly, it's easy to misunderstand. At this moment, the Empress asked again, I want to know, why do you want to go to the court to meet with the officials? If you are unwilling, I will not force you. The man's expression suddenly became calm. He blurted out 2 words, lonely. The Empress furrowed her brows. What do you mean? Before I was summoned here, many times I was all alone. I don't know where to begin, it's just me now. The man was so gifted and strong from a young age. No one could be his partner. So he always had to complete tasks alone. Now, in this other world, he's the only earthling left. It's like level 10 loneliness, times 2. Even the Empress couldn't help but sigh. Yes, alone. How am I not alone as well? Hearing that, the man suddenly turned his head and said, although it's inexplicable, we've become husband and wife. Perhaps it's somewhat undeserved. But in a way, I have a family now. I think at the very least, we're no longer alone. Although I can't help much. But you want that position. I will stay with you and face it together. Suddenly, the Empress's eyes were filled with emotion and inexplicable feelings. Let me introduce myself. Hello, my name is Ziruoyan. Hello, my name is Xiao Tian. Let's begin. On this day, all the officials were waiting outside Xuanwu Gate to attend the court. A few officials were discussing in whispers. I heard the northern border is settled, and His Majesty will return. This time, the prince will also meet with the officials in court. But I heard, the Chancellor has been trying to have his son meet with His Majesty Shu. Lower your voice, the Chancellor is here. This man is the Chancellor, Lu Outyan, who holds power over the court. With just one glare from him, the group immediately fell silent, like frozen cicadas. And this man is none other than the Prime Minister's son, Lu Shimi. He looked angrily at the seat next to the Empress's dragon throne. That should have been my seat. At that moment, a sharp voice sounded. Your Majesty has arrived. The prince has arrived. The Empress directly sat on the dragon throne. But the man hesitated as he looked at the phoenix chair beside her. Phoenix throne. Is this for me to sit or not? I'm not a woman, sitting would be a bit embarrassing. The Empress noticed he didn't sit and quickly asked what was wrong. It's nothing. It's just this chair. The Empress didn't wait for him to finish and called out. Someone. The prince is a man, how can he sit on the phoenix throne? Change it for me. 2 eunuchs quickly brought over a python-wood chair and placed it to the side. Afterward, the Empress secretly gave the man a seductive glance. The man was slightly startled. It turned out the Empress had done it on purpose. This was to tell the court officials that His Majesty greatly favored him. Thus, the man with a grand gesture swept his robe aside. He sat down gracefully and confidently. A smug smile still played on his lips. All the ministers kept their heads down in silence. Zhong Lishuang even covered her face, unable to bear to watch. At this moment, the Empress suddenly coughed. The eunuch beside her immediately shouted to the crowd, those with matters to report, come forward. Those without, dismiss yourselves. Yongxian wouldn't possibly let this opportunity slip by. He immediately spoke up. Your Majesty, Shen has something to report. The Empress glanced at him faintly. Go ahead. The Chancellor started talking non-stop. The man beside him listened and chuckled quietly. This is interesting. I didn't expect the Chancellor to be quite capable. Not only can he answer all of Ziruoyan's questions fluently, but he can also fill in the gaps and make inferences about matters in the southern border. It seems the great Yan Empire's national strength is growing stronger every day. Prime Minister Lu truly deserves much credit. It's just a shame it's not just the ambition that's worrisome. It's that he has both the ambition and the ability. It will be extremely difficult for Ziruoyan to take back power from him. There are many obstacles ahead. Just then, Lu Aoshan's eyes suddenly narrowed, and he spoke. Your Majesty, the prince has corrupted the court, is unworthy of his position, and has misled your Majesty. I, your servant, beseech your Majesty, to depose Prince Xiao Tian and execute him immediately. As this old fellow shouted these 3 words, the 100 officials present immediately split into 2 clearly defined factions. The Prime Minister's faction and the Empress's faction are at odds, each unwilling to back down. The man smiles faintly. The main event is about to begin. This is so much fun. Zhongling smiles at Lu Yen from the side and says, Sister Lu, look quickly. The prince is truly a prince. Others want to behead him, and he's still so happy. Lu Yen gestures for her to be quiet. The worst outcome, it's nothing more than the prince revealing his strength. With a single slap, he kills Chancellor Lu. If the prince wants to play, let him play. The 2 of them know very well how terrifying men can be. At this moment, the Empress also spoke. She gazed at Lu Outyan and said softly, Chancellor, Prince Xiao Tian is my husband, and with a single word from you, he has to. This is utter nonsense. As she spoke, the Empress directly unleashed her aura. which swept across the officials like a tidal wave. Everyone was dumbfounded and utterly shocked. As expected of Her Majesty, at just 20 years old, she's reached the 9th level of the Saint Realm. Truly unparalleled. But Lu Aotian just smiled faintly, silently mocking her in his heart. But a mere 9th rank saint. Truly overestimating oneself. Although he thought so, Lu Aotian still slightly bent his waist. The old minister congratulates Your Majesty, your cultivation has advanced further. The people behind him were immediately stunned. Could it be that their prime minister is actually bowing? But no matter what, the prime minister had spoken, so they could only follow and congratulate the empress. But at this moment, the empress's heart is not at peace. I, a 9th rank saint, cannot fathom his realm. He can easily dispel my pressure. It seems his strength is even deeper than I imagined. Sure enough, Lu Aotian raised his head and said coldly, Your Majesty, improving one's cultivation is a good thing, but the great dynasty relies not only on strength, but also on ability and principle. Prince Xiao Tian, as the emperor's husband, should possess talents that can govern the world. Yet, he engages in actions that harm the people for personal gain. Your Majesty is noble, the supreme of the great Yan. Yet he uses Your Majesty's name to act recklessly. With his body filled with the stench of money, what qualification does he have to be the emperor's husband? Therefore, I request the prince be deposed. Also, General Zhong's legitimate daughter, Zhong Ling, spending all day with the prince, ignoring the difference between men and women and disregarding social hierarchy. And Commander Lu Yan is also absent from duty, following Xiao Tian in his mischief and neglecting their responsibilities. And even the Minister of Revenue, Zhong Yangming, has become a mere cook for this prince. It's truly laughable and outrageous. Isn't this undermining the government? Now that His Majesty dotes on this prince so much, if this continues, will the monarch no longer attend court? Therefore, I again request the beheading of the prince. General Zhong Lishuang died in an explosion, and this old man is causing trouble. Why involve my daughter? My daughter has done nothing wrong with the prince. At this moment, her husband, Zhong Yangming, spoke up. Your Majesty, the Chancellor is just making a fuss. The prince brewed wine and greatly improved the Qingjiu wine. The purpose was to build bridges and repair roads. Taken from the people, used for the people. How can this be seen as competing with the people for profits? The wine bears the emperor's name, that is a contribution to the world. And perhaps the prime minister doesn't know, the southern border strategy you praise so highly, was actually conceived by the prince. I was merely acting on their behalf. Lu Aotian and the others were stunned. Good grief. No wonder Zhong Yangming had such a strange attitude toward this strategy in the past. He avoided talking about it. So it turns out he was waiting here. Zhong Yangming continued, everyone knows. My disobedient daughter is quite unruly. She has only improved since following the prince. Commander Lu is from Qinyan town. With the emperor's order, she is to guard and accompany the prince. Is there a problem? So, I want to ask the prime minister. The prince is erudite and talented. How can he be said to be unworthy of his position? Where does the accusation of corrupting the court come from? The empress smiled. The man couldn't help but give a thumbs up. Old Zhong is really good with words. Who would have thought that Lu Aotian would snort coldly and say, is that so? Minister Zhong, do you have any evidence? Zhong Shangshu was momentarily stunned by his question. What do you mean? What evidence? Only then did Lu Aotian speak again. How could a prince possibly have such ability? Minister Zhong, I have every reason to suspect that you are attributing your own actions to him. As soon as these words were spoken, the court immediately buzzed with discussion. Do you think Minister Zhong can provide evidence? He probably can't. I didn't expect Minister Zhong would go to such lengths for His Majesty, to this extent. Yeah, what's so good about that prince? Was it necessary for Minister Zhong to do this? Zhong Yangming was startled. Initially, it was just the prince verbally mentioning it to him. Right now, there really isn't any evidence. Just then, a voice suddenly rang out. You say Minister Zhong has no evidence to prove that I did these things. It was the man who spoke. He looked at Lu Aotian with great interest and continued. Then, Yongxiang, do you have any evidence to prove that these things have nothing to do with me? He then took out an ancient book of inheritance. He hoped the man would take a look. Upon seeing this, the empress immediately became furious. Prime Minister Lu, what are you trying to do? The man seemed somewhat puzzled. Why is the empress so upset? This Lu Aotian, he just took out a book, didn't he? How can reading a book lead to his own doom? I don't believe it. He smiled and said to him, if it's for me to see, then it's no problem. The empress was terrified. No, this book can't be seen. The man didn't care at all. Whether it can be seen or not is not important. Prime Minister Lu, why should I have to see it just because you say so? The Emperor of the DaiYan Empire is not you, Lu Aotian, right? Upon hearing this, Lu Aotian's face turned serious. I, Lu Aotian, am loyal to the great Yan. I am His Majesty's teacher and mentor. Naturally, I must be thorough in my scrutiny. Could it be that the knowledgeable prince can't even withstand such a small test? Or are you nothing more than a showy pillow, good for nothing? Are you in cahoots with Minister Zhong, deceiving both the court and the people, guilty of grave crimes? The men were speechless. This guy, he's quite skilled at framing others. If I weren't the protagonist, I would have believed these reversed accusations. Your Highness, this book cannot be read. It was Zhong Shangshu who spoke. This book, for the purpose of preservation, is written in a different script. If you can't understand it, you'll die instantly. 17 people have already perished. He died trying to decipher this ancient text. The man still wore a faint smile. Yongxiang said earlier that in DaiYan, we should reason things out. But the test you proposed now doesn't make any sense. Lu Aotian didn't explain. Instead, he used a challenge. Your Highness, are you afraid? Of course not. It's just that you're using this ancient text to test whether I am worthy of His Majesty, whether I am learned and talented. If I can't understand, I'll have to pay with my life. If I do understand, the Prime Minister will lose nothing. Isn't that a bit unreasonable? Saying this, the man directly walked up to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister's son, Lu Shimi, suddenly interjected. Xiao Tian, stop quibbling and dodging the question. The man slapped him. Children should not interrupt when adults are speaking. It's impolite. Then he turned to Lu Aotian, the Prime Minister Lu. How did you raise your son? Hearing this, Lu Aotian glared at Lu Shimi. Lu Shimi immediately understood. He immediately knelt down. Your Majesty, I have lost composure in front of the throne. Please punish me. Lu Shimi has lost composure. Half a year's salary as punishment. At ease. Thank you, Your Majesty. The man silently glanced at him. I thought he was an easy person to anger. He could be Lu Aotian's weak spot. I didn't expect him to calm down so quickly. Both father and son are tough to deal with. At this point, Lu Aotian continued, how about this? When His Majesty ascended the throne, I served as regent. When power was returned, I was concerned that the newly enthroned emperor might indulge in extravagance. The secret vault key left by the late emperor was never fully returned. As he spoke, he took out the key. If the prince really is capable, with your assistance to His Majesty, I will no longer need to worry. This key pendant should be returned to its rightful owner. In addition, I offer 3 million spirit stones as a wedding gift, to wish Your Majesty great happiness on your wedding. How about this token, Prince Xiao? The man smiled directly. Not enough. I want 5 million spirit stones. If it's not that amount, I won't agree. Haha, since Prince Xiao has such a big appetite, then I can't be stingy. 6 million spirit stones, Prince Xiao, please. Saying this, he handed the ancient book to the man. Today, this prince will be in my grasp, Lu Aotian. The man took the ancient book and smiled. Prime Minister Lu, I'll thank you in advance for that 6 million spirit stones gift. At this moment, the Empress suddenly spoke to stop them. Prince, don't be reckless. If you can't understand this ancient text, you will die instantly. But the man seemed not to hear. He had already opened the ancient book and was reading it. Just then, the man suddenly closed the book. The Empress was instantly shocked, as if struck by lightning. She couldn't help but exclaim, husband. Yongxiang and the other ministers also discussed, Your Highness. It seems my gift. You're not worthy of it. It's over. The prince's suicide was so decisive. Once you open this book, you must finish it. You must read until the last page, or you'll die. If you give up halfway and close the book, you'll also die. But the man is not only fine, he even pretends not to hear clearly and asks why. Yongxiang was immediately stunned. Whoa, you're really fine. The man turned around nonchalantly, saying as he looked, I'm just tired from standing. I'll go sit and take my time watching. Do you have a problem with that? Then the man sat next to the Empress, reading a book. The ministers below were completely confused. What are you all staring at me for? The court session isn't over, is it? Mind your own business, I'll mind mine. The Empress is still a little worried, Your Highness. Is there anything bothering you? The man smiled slightly. Thank you for your concern, Your Majesty. I'm fine. The Chancellor's gift will definitely be delivered to you. Not far away, Zhongling and Lu Yan exchanged a silent glance. I knew it would be like this. How could this monster, the prince, possibly be unwell? Yongxiang watched the man engrossed in his book. She couldn't help but think to herself, this good-for-nothing is reading ancient texts without incident. Could it be that ordinary people without cultivation aren't affected by ancient texts? Just then, the man suddenly closed the book, clutching his head in silence, seemingly lost in thought. The Empress tilted her head to look at him. It seems that being an ordinary person without cultivation does have its advantages. At this moment, she suddenly really wanted to tell everyone, see, Even my husband, though just an ordinary person, is still extraordinary and exceptional. Little did she know, the man was about to explode with anger. This ancient text looks like a bunch of scribbles. What is all this nonsense? Are you sure this was written by a human? He directly summoned the system, Wang Kai, and asked, "What is the power within this book?" "Honorable Master, this book is an ancient text from the ancient god clan's inheritance. The power of the protective seal is capable of erasing beings with the strength of a 10th order saint realm. Of course, it poses no threat to you." The man immediately laughed. Ancient god clan inheritance ancient text. This thing really wasn't written by a human. It looks like this world is a bit interesting. There are also things that aren't human. Can you help me translate this? Wang Kai then reminded. Translating this ancient tome of the old god's legacy requires 3,000 task points. You need to complete the tasks issued by the system. Only then can I get task points. The man's face turned cold. Can you just translate it for me directly? I'm very grateful, Master, but according to my system settings, I need to shut up. I've already put my words out there. If you make me lose face, you know the consequences. Wang Kai immediately fell silent. Then, the task was issued. The task content is, the master rests for a second in the armchair. Congratulations, Master, your task has been completed. You have earned 99,999,999 task points. The ancient texts of the elder gods are being translated. The man is amused by Wang Kai, unable to stop laughing. It seems that, only by applying some pressure to you, can the problem be solved. Improve next time, understand? Sorry, Master. I will continue to improve. The Chancellor below had no idea what was happening. He saw the man flipping through ancient texts incessantly. A surge of anger rose in his heart. This guy keeps fiddling right in front of me. Is he mocking me? Chancellor Yong could only smile wryly and say, Prince Xiao, did you understand this book? Please don't make any excuses to dodge the question. What ridiculous excuses, like saying it's a fake book or something. The man smiled faintly. This prince doesn't stoop to playing such petty games with you. He glanced at the progress bar invisible to others. The next second, the ancient book in his hand suddenly vibrated, emitting a buzzing sound. Countless golden characters suddenly bloomed from the ancient book. Obscure and difficult to understand, yet its majestic aura was undiminished. Everyone present gasped in surprise. This thing, even the Empress can't contain herself. She excitedly stood up and spread her hands toward the Chancellor. This ancient text, passed down for generations, is now unlocked by His Royal Highness. Such talent, surely it must catch the Chancellor's eye, right? Yongxiang was drenched in sweat but still stubbornly said, "It's true the Heritage Golden Book has appeared, but Prince Xiao hasn't accepted the inheritance yet. Who can guarantee that the prince didn't casually flip through the books and trigger some hidden restriction, causing the Inheritance Golden Book to rise on its own?" As soon as the words were spoken, the Inheritance Golden Book let out a sound, and all the golden, ancient characters rushed into the man's mind in a frenzy. The man calmly accepted the inheritance. The officials of the Yongxiang faction were utterly embarrassed. On the other hand, the officials of the Empress's faction all wore smug smiles on their faces. Moments later, the man who had received the inheritance smiled at the Prime Minister, gently loosening his hand. The Golden Book of Inheritance fell to the ground, with a thud, as if it were trash. The man raised an eyebrow and smiled. "Lord Lu, what else do you have to say? Or are you going to deny it, Lord Lu? Don't try to make excuses. Don't use ridiculous excuses like saying this is a forged document." The Chancellor clenched his fist, pondering for a while. Finally, he conceded with a bow. "I was mistaken. I failed to recognize His Highness's great talent." Seeing him admit defeat, the man pressed on with his victory. "The 6 million spirit stones. You better not back out." And as he spoke, the man suddenly extended his hand. He snatched the dynasty key. As the wife of the Empress, of course, it's important. The man waved the key in his hand. "Thank you, Prime Minister Lu." The Prime Minister was furious but could only reply, begrudgingly, "It's already His Majesty's possession. There's no need to thank me for returning what belongs to you." But that's not what the man meant, Prime Minister Lu. "What I meant was this legacy golden booklet, and those 6 million spirit stones. Originally, I only wanted 5 million. But who would have thought, Prime Minister Lu, you're so wealthy and generous. You even gave an extra million." As he spoke, the man suddenly raised his fist. The Prime Minister was startled. What is this useless person trying to do? To his surprise, the man simply gave a thumbs up. He smiled innocently and praised. "Thank you, you're such a good person." The Prime Minister twitched his lips. "Damn, I really hate this guy. You're the good person, your whole family is full of good people." The Empress quickly stepped in as a mediator. Alright, my husband, don't press the issue too hard. If you make the chancellor sick, who will send the congratulatory gifts? The officials couldn't help but chuckle. Huaxia has learned some bad habits from the prince. He's actually using the old trick of feigning illness that Chancellor Lu used. To mock Chancellor Lu, the Chancellor had no choice but to grit his teeth and respond. Thank you, Your Majesty, for your protection. I will send my congratulatory gift to the palace this afternoon. The Empress is in a good mood, and with a wave of her hand, she smiled. Then I must also thank the Prime Minister for his generosity. If there's nothing else, you may leave the court. Upon hearing this, all the officials knelt on the ground. We humbly bid farewell to Your Majesty. They exited through Xuanwu Gate. The ministers chatted and laughed in small groups. Only the Chancellor and his son, walking ahead, had cold and stern faces. Their moods were extremely irritable. Meanwhile, the man was with Zhongling and Lu Yan, smiling as he told Zhong Yangming, the Minister of Rights, "We've achieved a great victory today. Let's have dinner at your place tonight." Several officials from the Empress faction immediately gathered around. Prince Xiao has truly made us proud. Taking a closer look, he truly has an extraordinary bearing. The prince is truly talented. He managed to outmaneuver the Chancellor. His face was as black as the bottom of a pot just now. The man grinned, and with a grand sweep of his hand, said, "This is music to my ears. A jar of green flame Empress wine for each of you. We'll send someone to fetch it from Minister Zhong's mansion later." The three were instantly overjoyed. "Thank you, Prince. What generosity." The female general, Zhong Lishuang, also approached. "You really are quite impressive. I have high hopes for you." Zhong Yangming then pulled Zhong Lishuang. "Wife, let's go. Let's go home and cook something good for the prince." Seeing that most people had left, the man took out the dynasty key and looked at it. 6 million spirit stones. That guy wouldn't try to find an excuse to back out, would he? Lu Yan shook her head. No. Since Lu Outyan said it, he will follow through. But this Prime Minister Lu really is a bit strange. I'm afraid he has his own motives. It's good that Lu Outyan has some skills. Now the great empire also needs him to stabilize the court, assist in governing the country. Suddenly, Zhongling interrupted. "Right, Your Highness. What's the story with that ancient book causing sudden death?" The man looked calm. "That ancient book? It seems to be called something like the Ancient God Clan's Legacy. The restrictions inside can kill 10th Order saints, and anyone below 10th Order." Upon hearing this, Zhongling and Lu Yan were stunned. Whoa, kill 10th Order saints? Lu Yan was the first to react. What is the Ancient God Tribe? The man was also confused. Don't you know? Both of them shook their heads. We've only heard of the human and demon tribes. We've never heard of the Ancient God Tribe. Zhongling suddenly remembered something. Right, Your Highness. You keep opening and closing the ancient books. Does this help with obtaining the inheritance? The man looks completely innocent. It's useless. How could you have such a ridiculous idea? How could flipping and closing the book help with the inheritance? After hearing this, Zhongling was even more puzzled. Then, Your Highness, why have you been doing that? The man gestured slightly. It's the forbidden power in the book. The massage feels quite nice, because the pressure is intermittent. That's why I keep flipping the book and closing it. Good grief. They'll never reach the 10th stage of Saint Realm, even if they spend their entire lives. And yet, in the prince's eyes, this is nothing. That's the power capable of erasing the Saint Realm. And you're using it for a massage. Your Highness, please be a decent person. That night, inside Chancellor Lu's mansion, Lu Shimi, the Chancellor's son, was angrily accusing. "Father, Xiao Tian is too much. Why don't I find someone to take care of him?" Saying this, Lu Shimi gestured across his throat. The meaning was clear, but the Chancellor didn't respond. He just looked at him sternly. Lu Shimi immediately broke out in a cold sweat. He knew he had spoken out of turn. After a long while, Yongxiang finally spoke. "The matter is almost concluded. Don't ruin everything because of a lowly person without cultivation. Don't ruin the whole thing. I am very disappointed in your performance this time, my son." "Father, Lu Shimi couldn't finish. Yongxiang interrupted again, saying, "One day, when you return to the empire, behaving like this will be unacceptable. Have you forgotten everything I taught you?" "I know I was wrong, father." The Chancellor looked at the night sky. "All these years, the day of our return to the empire is drawing near. The time is approaching. At the final juncture, we must be extremely cautious. By the way, have someone spread the news about Xiao Tian obtaining the inheritance golden book, as soon as possible. Cause some trouble for that brat Xiao Tian. Make Si Ruoyan worry a bit too." Lu Shimi quickly agreed, while the Chancellor felt a pang of discomfort in his heart. What bad luck. If it weren't for that terrifying powerhouse called King Yen casually intervening, he destroyed the Blood Cloud Tower. He had already kidnapped Xiao Tian and controlled Si Ruoyan. If that were the case, there wouldn't be such a troublesome situation now. If he knew that the one who destroyed the Blood Cloud Tower was that prince, he would have packed up and fled by now. On the other side, in a palace hall, a man had just returned from outside and was pushing open the door. I saw the Empress handling state affairs. The memorials were piled up across the entire table. The men were stunned. So many. Is she going to approve all of this by the time pigs fly? The Empress slowly looked up, her face full of grievance. If it weren't for Lu Aojian being capable and taking on most of the work, you'd probably not even see me standing here. The men could only agree, saying, being an emperor is really tough. It's a good thing I'm just a kept man. Otherwise, I'd be worked to death. But the Empress doesn't see it that way. The Great Yan Dynasty, its father's life's work, and it's what my two older brothers have defended with their lives. No matter how hard or tired I am, compared to them, it's nothing. Then the man suddenly remembered, right. The 6 million spirit stones from Lu Aojian have already been sent to the palace. Upon hearing this, the Empress stood up, and handed the key in her hands to the man. Perfect, I summoned you because I need your help. This key pendant is a pair with the one you retrieved from Lu Aojian. They can be combined to form the palace's vault key. Inside, there are many treasures left by Father Emperor. The man took the half key and was momentarily stunned. You still have things to do. The Empress then explained, I am giving you the key. You are in charge of guarding the palace's treasures. At least now you have something to do. This way, the court won't have an excuse to say you're idle. Isn't that good? Hearing that he would be managing the secret vault, the man immediately rejoiced. This is wonderful. Saying this, the man joined the two halves of the key together. A ding sound was heard. The key suddenly emitted golden rays of light, spreading around the man. The Empress didn't even look up. This jade token itself is a spiritual artifact with protective effects. I can ensure your safety. I established a new treasury after ascending the throne. You should have Lu Yan and the others move everything from the new treasury to the main vault. If there's anything you like, feel free to pick it out. As for spirit stones, don't take more than 200 cubic feet. There are still many places in DaiYan that need funding. The things you brought back then are also in the vault. Whether you take it is up to you. The man was overjoyed. This soft rice is so delicious. Life is good, protected by the head of state, and money to spend freely. This is so awesome. The man immediately clasped his fists and laughed. Thank you, Your Majesty. This treasury gate. I guarantee I will guard it safely for you, he finished. The man turned around and was about to leave, but the Empress suddenly called out to him, Xiao Tian. The man quickly turned around. What's wrong, Your Majesty? The Empress slowly walked toward him. Then, she suddenly smiled and said, Thank you. The man immediately understood her meaning. He casually gestured and said, You're welcome, my lady. That day, the jerk brought Zhongling and Lu Yan to the Empress's private treasure vault, but the man showed no interest in the room full of rare treasures. The only thing that caught his eye was this coffin-like object. Zhongling was puzzled. Why does this thing look so strange? But in the man's eyes, there was nothing but nostalgia. He stroked the wooden box and said softly, What's so strange about it? It looks like a coffin. The man immediately gave Zhongling a smack on the head. Stop talking nonsense. This is a single soldier armored weapon storage. And it's a custom version made by me, a grandmaster. Upon hearing this, Zhongling instantly became interested. Single soldier armor weapons cache. Master special edition. It seems really powerful. Can I take a look? The man didn't think twice and directly refused. This box was actually brought with him when he was summoned. It was the weapons cache he used to harvest lives when he was an assassin on Earth. If possible, the man hoped to never have to use this arsenal again. He then waved at the two girls. Let's go, let's check out the old vault of my father-in-law. Not long after, the three arrived at the entrance of the old emperor of the DaiYan dynasty's vault. Just as they were about to enter, they were stopped by the soldiers at the door. The two soldiers simultaneously shouted, Restricted area, keep your distance. The man smiled faintly, I am the Empress' husband. I've come on her orders to take control of the vault. Seeing the vault key in the man's hand, the two soldiers immediately lowered their weapons. They turned around and opened the door. The three of them were stunned as soon as they entered. Good grief. The entire space of the secret vault was filled with spirit stones and treasures, piled up so densely that even sorting was skipped. The three of them stared wide-eyed. They couldn't even see the end at a glance. The man couldn't help but exclaim, Father-in-law, you're truly amazing. This betrothal gift is really simple and brutal. But then again, a small treasury of an emperor who founded a dynasty is dozens of times wealthier than the entire Great Yan Empire. This is just too unreasonable, right? Zhongling murmured in confusion. How many spirit stones is this? Suddenly, the man patted Lu Yan's shoulder. Go get the Empress. Let her see how she wants to handle these spirit stones. Lu Yen nodded and immediately left. At this moment, the man suddenly had a thought and asked Zhongling, "If your father saw this, would he faint?" Zhongling shrugged. "My father has been in charge of the Ministry of Revenue for so many years. How could he possibly faint over this?" The man thought for a moment. "You're right," he said. Just then, the Emperor and Zhong Yangming arrived. The men stepped forward. "What should we do?" The Empress stared blankly at everything. Zhong Yangming suddenly collapsed to the ground with a thud. Several people watched Zhong Yangming speechlessly. Zhongling covered her face. "This is so embarrassing." A man, enjoying the spectacle, teased, "Is that all your father's got?" Zhongling was speechless. "I'll definitely have mother discipline him when we get home. He's not getting into bed tonight." Moments later, Zhong Yangming came to his senses. Excitedly, he circled the room full of spirit stones. "These are for forging new weapons. These can be used by the southern border." He, finally able to have a wealthy account. The Empress, with a face full of indulgence, told the man, "If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have known that the Imperial Father's private treasury contains so many spirit stones. From now on, take as many spirit stones as you want, as long as you're happy." The man immediately became elated upon hearing this. "Take as many as I want. He, this is it, I've struck it rich." Soon after, the man was the first to leave the treasure vault. Zhongling and Lu Yen walked alongside, wearing blank expressions. And behind them, a few soldiers were struggling to move a spirit stone bed. "Sister Lu Yen, isn't this bed too hard to lie on?" "I don't know, as long as His Highness likes it." The man was sleeping on the spirit bed that had been moved from the Empress's treasury. Suddenly, an eye appeared between the man's brows. The eye rolled around, scanning the surroundings. After a moment, the eye transformed into a spirit sense. It descended upon the man's sea of consciousness, radiating dazzling light. This spiritual consciousness is the inherited spirit of the ancient gods. After glancing around, he looked utterly incredulous. This appearance of the sea of consciousness, is it really the human race's sea of consciousness? I'm not sure. Let me sense it again. The old man-like inherited spirit closed his eyes. He murmured to himself. After a moment, the old man was enraged. How is this possible? The lowly human race is simply not qualified to receive the ancient god clan's inheritance. They must have used some shameless means to steal the inheritance. Suddenly, a voice came from in front of the old man. Analysis complete. The spirit of the ancient god clan's inheritance. The spirit responsible for teaching the inheritance knowledge. The old man focused and saw that in front of him was actually a tomato. But the most terrifying part is yet to come. The more starlight in the sea of consciousness, the stronger the soul becomes. The old man has 99 stars behind him, which already makes him an extremely terrifying being. But this ghostly tomato has 3,000 stars. He couldn't help but exclaim, "You, who exactly are you? Shouldn't this be the sea of consciousness of the human race? I am Wang Kai. I am my master's servant. The sea of consciousness you are in is indeed my master's sea of consciousness." At this moment, a man appeared. "What's all this commotion? Can't a person even sleep in peace?" The old man followed the sound. Suddenly, a chorus of croaking frogs erupted. He knelt down immediately. He knelt without hesitation, awestruck. He muttered, "This must be a monster." The man was surrounded by starlight. The pattern was more than 36 million. At this moment, Wang Kai suddenly reminded the old man, "Intruder. Please step back a bit. The master just woke up. He might accidentally erase your existence." Upon hearing this, the old man immediately performed a sliding tackle. He slid on his knees for more than 10 meters. The man was stunned and could only ask Wang Kai, "Wang Kai, come here. In my sea of consciousness, how did this old man suddenly appear?" Replying to my respected master, "This elder is the inherited spirit from the ancient god clan's inheritance scroll. According to my analysis, normally, he would be in the sea of consciousness, teaching the inheritor knowledge." Hearing this, the man understood. "So this is what an ancient god looks like. He looks like a schoolteacher." The old man replied with a smile, "My lord, my appearance is indeed that of an ancient god." But in his heart, he was thinking, "I must carefully navigate this interaction with this important figure. I'll pretend to impart knowledge and try to extract information from him. Maybe the revival of the ancient gods will he." In the next moment, the man suddenly leaned in close to his face and asked, "What are you thinking?" The old man immediately became embarrassed. "My lord." The man immediately shouted, "What are you guilty about?" As expected, people who are not of our kind, their hearts must be different. "You old fool. I think it's seriously damaged, can't keep it. Wang Kai, go ahead and eat him, as you command." All they heard was the sound of Wang Kai swooping by. The old man lost his lower half immediately, his scheme exposed. The old man was furious. "Why aren't you following the rules? No more talking, just act. Has the dignity of a strong person been thrown away?" The man snorted coldly, just as I expected. His eyes were filled with resentment. Clearly, he was furious after his treacherous plan was exposed. The spirit of the ancient god's lineage. Is this all the brainpower you have? As he spoke, the old man had already been devoured by Wang Kai, leaving only his head, but he was still grumbling angrily. After a moment, after finishing this, the spiritual entity, Wang Kai, told the man that it needed to upgrade first. Wow, no one ever mentioned that the system could upgrade by eating things. That night, a figure was crouching on the roof of a palace building, peering through a hole, watching the man. No wonder he's the emperor's favorite husband. It's incredibly extravagant to actually use so many spirit stones as a bed. Unfortunately, your comfortable days are over. The next second, the masked man swooped down. He was holding a gleaming silver blade, but things didn't go as planned. The blade actually snapped in two with a clang, and the man remained fast asleep without a single sensation, until the broken blade fell to the ground with a clink. Before the masked man's dumbfounded eyes, it clattered to the ground. The masked man stood there, dumbfounded and at a loss. He watched as the man slowly woke up, seeing someone standing before him. The man was also startled. Who are you? What are you doing here? Sweat poured down the masked man's face. I didn't mean to. Do you believe me? At that moment, the attendant outside also shouted, Your Highness, are you alright? The man turned and shouted towards the outside. I just accidentally knocked something over. It's fine. You just call Lu Yen over. The masked man looked utterly confused. He had no idea what he was trying to do. The two guards outside, who were about to break in, paused and exchanged a glance. Yes, Your Highness. The man then picked up the broken blade, and curiously examined its material. He couldn't believe someone actually dared to assassinate him in the palace. The next second, the man directly crushed the broken sword into a ball. The masked man was stunned. Holy crap, what kind of monster is this? That was a 6th-tier top-grade spirit tool given to me by my master. Is the intelligence department in the palace all brain-dead? Didn't they say he was just an ordinary person? Ordinary my ass. The masked man collapsed to the ground, trembling with fear. At this moment, Lu Yen also rushed over. Your Highness, what happened? I just woke up, and this guy tried to knock me unconscious with a short knife. By the way, His Majesty, didn't he notice the commotion here? Your Highness, rest assured. I was nearby just now, and there was no commotion here at all. It certainly didn't alarm His Majesty. The man finally breathed a sigh of relief. That's good, as long as we didn't disturb anyone. By the way, Prince, where's the cooking vessel? Lu Yen glanced around, but couldn't see anything. The man then reached out. It shattered when he struck me. I was bored, so I was fiddling with it. I'll give it to you. Recycling it as scrap, you should be able to make some money, right? Lu Yen took the small ball and examined it. Wow, this thing is actually made of spirit edge gold, just like this. Selling a few 100,000 spirit stones is probably a piece of cake. Lu Yen immediately cupped her fists and thanked the prince. She then turned to face the masked figure, another person from the Black Soul Temple. At your age, being able to infiltrate the palace without being detected, it seems. You must be one of the twin devils under Lu Xie, the silent killer, right? The masked person quickly smiled and said, This sister has sharp eyes. I am the assassin Feng Meng of the Earth Fiends. It was all a misunderstanding before. Misunderstanding? You broke into the palace at night and attempted to assassinate the prince. What do you mean by misunderstanding? Feng Meng hurriedly explained. I wasn't trying to assassinate him. I used the back of the blade. Your Highness, think carefully. Didn't I use the back of the blade? The man nodded. He did indeed use the back of the blade. Yes, actually I came to the palace, just to gather some intelligence. I grabbed a servant, but mistook the person. I absolutely had no intention of assassination. Upon hearing this, the man stared at him in silence for a moment. Then he looked at Lu Yen seriously and said, I think this person is treating me like a fool. The head of the Imperial Guards, Lu Yen, could only sigh in helplessness. Sighing, he said to him, Just accept your fate. Your Black Soul Hall is really unlucky. Once again, you've fallen into the hands of the prince. The masked man was slightly stunned. What do you mean, again? You should know that the Black Soul Hall has only had the poison swamp elder visit once before. Why are you saying, again? Could it be? The masked man seemed to have thought of something. His eyes were filled with terror and unease. The next second, he trembled, extending a finger and asking, You are the king of hell. They received the news a long time ago. The poison swamp elder, one of the 6 evils of the Black Soul Temple, was obliterated, reduced to ashes by a mysterious powerhouse. And the Blood Cloud Tower, the renowned assassin organization of the Southern Wilderness, was also completely annihilated by that mysterious powerhouse within a single day. Everyone knows. That mysterious strongman only left behind a steel. on which the name of the Yan Wang was clearly inscribed. Now they are actually telling me that this Yan Wang is the useless prince before my eyes. This little face, the alluring empress in everyone's eyes. The masked man was terrified, his liver and gallbladder about to burst. His mind began to waver. He suddenly shouted loudly, "Prince Xiao, you are the king of hell." As he spoke, he also shook his spiritual energy, trying to transmit this information. The man was slightly stunned by him. "Damn. Are you calling D to come home for breakfast that loudly? What if my wife hears you?" The man waved his hand with one motion. Suddenly, a crack was torn directly in the space in front of the man. The masked man stood there, completely stunned, tearing open space with bare hands. Is this even human? Before he could react, the man had already grabbed his throat. "I was still thinking of giving you a chance to start over. I didn't expect you to be this poisonous." Intentionally roaring loudly, shaking the spiritual energy. "Are you trying to alarm His Majesty and expose my strength?" The masked man trembled all over, wanting to beg for mercy but unable to speak, waving his hands repeatedly in anxiety. "I am also helpless. He would rather die than beg for mercy from me. He even used gestures to provoke me." The man sighed as he spoke. "Right, it's my own overthinking. Assassins are all determined to die rather than surrender." As soon as he finished speaking, the masked man was thrown directly into the rift in space. The man then clasped his hands together, seemingly asking heaven to forgive him for the kill. Afterward, the man smiled. "I'm so lenient with others, but strict with myself." Lu Yen didn't even want to comment. First, there was the destruction of evidence. Now there's this leniency. His Highness's comprehension is always so extraordinary. "Right, go see if the Empress is still in the Imperial study. See if the noise here has alarmed her." Lu Yen nodded, about to leave, when a guard reports at the door, "Your Highness, I'm here. Come in." It turns out, half an hour ago, General Zhong Lishuang hurried into the palace, and shortly after, His Majesty followed her out. "Before leaving, His Majesty told me to inform you, Your Highness, that he might not return tonight. He asked you not to wait for him." The man is immediately delighted. "Wonderful, isn't this a coincidence?" He managed to keep his cushy job, and then, the man waved his hand. "All right, you two go on duty." After the two left, the man lay on the bed, happily thinking. He had been startled tonight. Tomorrow, he'd have Zhong Yangming make him some extra good food. But the next morning, Zhong Ling paced back and forth in the courtyard, extremely anxious. Zhong Lishuang, who had been searching all night, just returned and asked, "Any news of your father in the city?" Early this morning, the female general, Zhong Lishuang, hurried back home to ask her daughter, "Any news of your father in the city?" Zhong Ling, with dark circles under her eyes and a face full of tears, replied, "No." The daughter had already searched everywhere in the city. "I didn't find father at all." Zhong Lishuang gritted her teeth. "Around the imperial city, I searched everywhere. I couldn't find any trace of your father." Just then, a golden light crashed down before them. The force was astonishing. They were instantly on high alert. Zhong Lishuang quickly demanded, "Who's there?" After the light dispersed, they could finally see. The person arriving was the Empress of DaiYan. Zhong Lishuang quickly stepped forward and asked, "Your Majesty, how is it?" The Empress shook her head, and Zhong, "I couldn't find any trace of Uncle Zhong." Upon hearing this, Zhong Lishuang almost collapsed to the ground. "It's my fault. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have argued with him yesterday." She was still angry and kicked him out of the room. Otherwise, how could he have been captured if he was by my side? The Empress also had a gloomy expression. It seems that Uncle Zhong's abduction was primarily related to this. Perhaps it has something to do with the situation in the south border. Under Uncle Zhong's leadership, the south border had become more stable. In secret, many restless individuals hiding among the refugees had been exposed, and they were seeking revenge. They will surely find an organization that can secretly infiltrate the imperial city and capture the minister of the household department of Great Yan. Then it must be the Black Soul Hall. Upon hearing the Empress's analysis, Zhong Lishuang became even more worried. The Black Soul Hall's methods are extremely erratic and violent. If old Zhong has been taken, I'm afraid the chances of survival are slim. Thinking this, she immediately kneeled and pleaded, "Your Majesty, I've never asked you for anything. Please, I beg you, save him." The Empress quickly helped her up. "Aunt Zhong, although we are sovereign and subject, I am also your Xiao Ruoyan. Don't worry, I'll bring Uncle Zhong back. In my personal capacity." Zhong Li was in tears. "All right, thank you, Aunt Zhong. Thank you." Seeing her so heartbroken, the Empress directly told Zhong Ling, "Take good care of your mother." Zhong Ling nodded. The next moment, the Empress turned into a streak of golden light. With a bang, it shot straight into the sky. As soon as the Empress left, Zhong Lishuang suddenly sensed something was wrong. What if the enemy is luring the tiger away from the mountain? taking advantage of the Empress's departure, but she hasn't gone far yet. Linger, stay at home and behave. Don't run around. I'll look for you nearby. After saying that, Zhong Lishuang also left. Zhongling was left alone, anxious like an ant on a hot pan. What if mother is wrong? What if father has already met with misfortune? Such worry only leads to more confusion. Finally, Zhongling had a flash of inspiration. He remembered the prince who was sleeping soundly in the palace. She quickly rolled up her pants and ran towards the palace, greasing the soles of her feet. Meanwhile, inside the man's side chamber, Lu Yan had just finished and was training her body. Zhong Lingfeng rushed in furiously. Senior Lu, is the prince here? The prince probably hasn't gotten up yet, General Shao. What's going on? Zhong Lingfeng's face was filled with worry. My father is dead. Lu Yan was taken aback. What do you mean your father is gone? Zhong Ling didn't explain, and went straight to the man's room. She pushed open the door and called out, Your Highness, it's time to get up. The man was woken up. He reluctantly turned his head and glanced at her. When he saw it was Zhong Ling, he sat up, yawned, and asked, What are you doing here so early, you little brat? My lord, last night, my father was taken by someone, and he still hasn't been found. I know you said you were tired of fighting and killing, but this time can you please help? Before Zhong Ling could finish speaking, the man exploded. What did you say? You said my chef was arrested. Zhong Ling was stunned. The chef. Prince, did you reveal something? My father treats you as a brother, but you treat my father as a chef. But what angered him most at that moment was that someone dared to touch his chef. In a moment of urgency, the man blurted out. Zhong Ling was shocked. My father treats you like a brother, and you treat my father like a cook. The man snapped back to reality and awkwardly said, that didn't count. Let's start over. After saying that, the man actually fell back onto the bed. He pretended like nothing had happened. The next second, the man suddenly sat up. He grabbed Zhong Ling's shoulder and shouted, What did you say? My dear big brother was taken away. Zhong Ling and Lu Yan just quietly watched him perform. The situation was extremely awkward at one point. The man could only clear his throat. Alright, it was just a joke. No wonder His Majesty wasn't in the palace yesterday. Turns out this kind of thing happened. Who has such courage? The minister of the Ministry of Revenue was arrested in the imperial city. Your Highness, have you forgotten? Wasn't there also a bold and reckless person last night, who sneaked into the palace and attacked you? Upon hearing Lu Yan's words, Zhong Ling was shocked again. What? Who would be so reckless and foolish as to attack the prince? The man thought for a moment. The Black Soul Hall. It's that Black Soul Hall again. They are going too far. Why are they targeting me? Zhong Ling and the other were stunned. How is it targeting your highness? The man looked serious. Think carefully. Since I became the Prince of DaiYan, I've been well behaved. All I do is eat delicious food, drink a little wine. I haven't provoked anyone, have I? The two stared at him blankly. So, this Black Soul Hall. First, that old man who gave me a hard time, mysteriously showed up to block me on Qingdan Mountain. On the surface, it seemed like a coincidence. But if you look deeper, is it really like that? Maybe they discovered traces of me from the Blood Cloud Tower incident. So they deliberately came to investigate. And this time, the Black Soul Hall made its move. That tough guy who would rather die than beg for mercy, he came straight for me. And with so many people from the Great Yan Dynasty, why didn't they target Prime Minister Lu Outyan? Why kidnap Zhong Yangming? Lu Outyan is the heavyweight figure of the Great Yan Dynasty, but they kidnapped Zhong Yangming, who is closest to me. So I have reason to suspect that the Black Soul Temple is targeting me. Lu Yan and the others couldn't help but sigh in exasperation. Your Highness, you're really overthinking it. To them, you're just an ordinary person. Who would be targeting you? The man continued speaking. Now the Emperor has also gone to the Black Soul Temple. If I make a move, and she sees it, doesn't that just expose my strength? But if I don't take action, if Chancellor Zhong meets with misfortune, I'll never get to enjoy good food again. This is so frustrating. Why do there always have to be commoners trying to harm me? All I want is to live in peace, eat, drink, and have fun. Is that so wrong? No, this absolutely can't stand. I have to go and kill them. Don't worry, your father will bring him back. After saying that, the man turned into a golden light, and with a roar, shot up like a rocket into the sky. The maid who was bringing breakfast to the courtyard was startled by the sudden booming sound. It wasn't until a moment later, when the noise gradually faded, that they began to look around in surprise. Zhong Ling then blankly asked Lu Yan, Is His Highness the Prince a little too sensitive? The Black Soul Hall probably didn't mean it that way. Lu Yan pondered. Perhaps before His Highness was summoned, he encountered something in his own realm, and always misinterprets others as trying to harm him. Zhong Ling was no longer worried about her father at this moment. Sister Lu, I suddenly feel a little sympathy for the Black Soul Hall. Why did they arrest father for no reason? No need, there's nothing to sympathize with. As the prince said, this Black Soul Temple is a scourge on this land, a disgusting and filthy force. It's best that they're destroyed. Now that they've provoked His Highness the Prince, they deserve their misfortune. On the other side, the Empress who went out searching, found no trace at all. The Empress couldn't believe that after abducting Zhong Yangming, the speed at which they left was so fast. She had already reached the border of DaiYan. Should she continue searching outward? But further south is the territory of the Black Soul Palace. If the Empress rashly enters, it's like tearing off the mask. No, I'd better not make the worst assumption just yet. Let me go look in the southern border first. Just as she was hesitating, something was flying rapidly toward her from behind. The Empress was startled. She immediately released a defensive golden light. What was that, so fast? She saw a massive beam of light sweeping past her. Even the Empress, as a ninth-stage powerhouse, would only meet with complete annihilation if she collided with this force. The Empress thought someone was trying to ambush her. Suppressing her shock, she shouted, "Who goes there? State your name." As she spoke, the Empress drew her sword. A fierce sword aura followed. However, the figure showed no signs of stopping, charging straight ahead. The Empress gazed at the distant direction, unconsciously murmuring to herself, "So strong, who is this powerful person? That direction, it's the Black Soul Hall." Thinking of this, the Empress suddenly had a flash of insight. The mysterious powerhouse who destroyed Blood Cloud Tower with a single punch, an existence beyond the 10th level. The Empress quickly chased after him. She also wanted to see who this person really was. Meanwhile, in a valley, a group of people were waiting in front of a teleportation array. A moment later, a bearded man appeared in front of the array, accompanied by Zhong Yangming. Everyone present quickly kneeled on one knee and said in unison, "We pay our respects, Lord Tian Sha." Tian Sha nodded solemnly. He then pushed Zhong Yangming through the crowd. At this moment, Zhong Yangming's mind was in turmoil. Could this be the headquarters of the Black Soul Temple? But the imposing gate in front of him, and the surrounding furnishings, looked so new. The construction was likely completed between 30 and 40 years ago. If my speculation is correct, then there's something wrong with the Black Soul Hall. From what he knows, the Black Soul Hall has existed for definitely more than 40 years. As the large doors slowly opened, the two entered the main hall. Zhong Yangming was forcefully shoved to the ground by Tian Sha. Then Tian Sha clasped his hands together, his face full of respect, and said, "Zhong Yangming of the DaiYan dynasty has already brought him here." The man smiled slightly. "It seems your actions are much faster than the Earth Fiend. There were no issues on the way, right?" Tian Sha then continued to explain, reporting, "My lord, this man's wife, General Zhong Li Suang, reacted quickly. She led Empress Si Ruoyan out of the city to search. Unfortunately, they never expected. We have secretly set up several hidden short-distance teleportation arrays." Upon hearing this, the man nodded in satisfaction. "Very good, well done." This man, who appeared somewhat mysterious, is the lord of the Black Soul Palace. Zi Qinglian and Zhong Yang had clearly heard of him. Zhong Yang immediately spoke his name. "Lord Zhong is truly calm under pressure, what great courage." Standing to the side is the Black Soul Hall steward. The woman at the front smiled. "I really want to see if your courage is greater than that of most people." Zhong Yangming showed no fear. "It seemed, this time, I am in great danger. There's no way to go back. Oh well, I'm just a mere minister of the Ministry of Revenue. If I die, at least I get to witness such a grand spectacle from Black Soul Hall. It can be considered a worthwhile trip." At this point, Zi Qinglian spoke up, "Minister Zhong, why be so pessimistic? Our Black Soul Hall is very reasonable. We only invited you this time to discuss one thing. That is to help protect Prince Xiao Tian's position. Other than that, it's just about collaborating with Xiao Tian, to keep an eye on Empress Si Ruoyan's every move." Zhong Yangming was startled. "Monitor the Empress? What are you actually trying to do? The prince is merely an ordinary person. You actually value him this much, to the point of protecting him?" Bai Qinglian covered her mouth and smiled. "What we are doing, and why we are dealing with Lue Ocean, is not something you need to know." Hearing this, Zhong Yangming understood. It seems the external forces colluding with Lue Ocean aren't the Black Soul Temple. But why are they monitoring the Empress? And what meaning do those intelligence reports hold? Seeing his silence, Zi Qinglian asked again, "Minister Zhong, what are your thoughts? I greatly admire you. You'd better not fail to recognize what's good for you." Zhong Yangming gritted his teeth, his face full of a death-defying expression. "I, Zhong Yangming, was nothing more than a poor scholar in the past. It was only because His Majesty took notice of me that I have what I do today. As for the current Empress, who is called Your Majesty, she is actually the niece I watched grow up. Do you think I would betray my own family?" Faced with the threats and temptations of the Black Soul Hall's leader, Zi Qinglian, Zhong Yangming firmly refused to give in, unwilling to betray his own people. Bai Qinglian smiled. You're really tough. It's a pity that in this place, integrity is the most useless thing. Su Fu, let this Mr. Zhong see your skills. A man named Su Fu chuckled. Alright. In the next moment, Su Fu's figure shifted. Su Fu had already arrived in front of Zhong Yangming. He threw a powerful punch into his stomach. Then, Su Fu pulled out a strange, fat worm. He pinched Zhong Yangming's mouth and shoved it inside. Afterward, he casually tossed Zhong Yangming to the ground. No matter how he gagged, he could only let the electric worm burrow deep into his belly. Su Fu wore a cruel smile as he explained. This is a fragrant insect, a very interesting kind of poison. It's now parasitic in your body. Within 3 days, if you don't smell the fragrance, the insect will eat your internal organs. Its abdominal feet will also pierce into your lungs, flesh, and skin to draw blood, making you wish you were dead. Minister Zhong, how are you feeling? You just need to agree and light this incense. You will give off a smell that the scent worms find extremely repulsive. Naturally, they won't touch you. Zhong Yangming lay on the ground, trembling all over, enduring great pain, but still did not beg for mercy. Everyone present couldn't help but marvel. This guy's will is surprisingly strong. From start to finish, he didn't utter a single word. Only Su Fu, as if his face had been slapped, roared. This is impossible. Why aren't you shouting? Why aren't you screaming in pain? Doesn't it hurt? After a while, the temple master, Ci Qinglian, couldn't help but call out, Zhong Yangming. She wanted to see whether he was dead or alive. To her surprise, Zhong Yangming gritted his teeth and let out a faint sound. The veins on his face bulged, and in the next moment, he suddenly stood up and shouted. The late emperor did not hesitate to lower his status, and treated me, this humble person, as a brother. He was both a teacher and a friend to me. And your majesty has called me uncle since childhood. This great Yen is not just a country, it is a family. You, Black Soul Hall, are nothing but a mere poison insect, only a finger long. You think you can make me submit? How laughable. Su Fu felt a surge of anger in his heart. They actually underestimated his methods so much. Zhong Yangming, are you truly seeking death? Zhong Yangming endured the intense pain in his abdomen. He actually laughed out loud again. Zhong Yangming. I'd rather die standing than live on my knees. Upon hearing this, Bai Qinglian stopped trying to persuade him to surrender. Fine, really fine. Since you're determined to seek death, then I shall grant it to you. Zhuang Yin, your skills are the best. You slice the meat the thinnest. Skin him alive for me. Upon hearing this, the masked man named Zhuang Yin remained silent. He suddenly appeared in front of Zhong Yangming. Su Fu knew that if Zhuang Yin made a move, Zhong Yangming would undoubtedly die. He muttered, somewhat displeased. This is so boring, as he watched the sharp aura emanating from Zhuang Yin's weapon. Facing the separation of life and death, Zhong Yangming still couldn't help but shed 2 lines of tears. I'm sorry, Your Majesty, I can no longer assist you linger. Father can't bear to see you marry and have children, my wife. I'm sorry, I really shouldn't have argued with you last night. Just as Zhong Yangming silently repented, the ceiling of the Black Soul Hall suddenly shattered with a loud bang. Slowly appearing before everyone's eyes, he has arrived. The man, enraged, descends from the sky. He heads straight toward the Black Soul Hall's lair. As soon as he lands, he crushes an evil king beneath his feet. Looking at this unfamiliar yet familiar figure, feeling the terrifying pressure in the air, Zhong Yangming still has tears in the corners of his eyes. His gaze is completely blank. The man turns his head and smiles. Good morning, Minister Zhong. Oh, why are you still crying? The next second, the man's eyes flashed with cold light. You scoundrels are so bold. You even dare to bully this king's cook. As soon as he finished speaking, an incredibly powerful force erupted. Several of the evil kings immediately spat out blood. The man had a serious expression. If it weren't for the fear of involving Zhong Yangming, how could it be that only a few misfits like Zai died? Moreover, he had just seen his wife, Zi Ruoyan. Immediately, the man decided to take action. With a push of his legs, he charged straight towards the Black Soul Hall master, Bai Qinglian. Bai Qinglian almost peed herself. Wait, Prince Xiao. Zhong Yangming has unbearable stomach pain from the worms inside him. Without the antidote, he's bound to die. Hearing this, the man turned his head to look at Zhong Yangming. Seeing him trembling all over, the man showed a look of disdain. Even now, you're still trying to deceive people. He's not in unbearable pain, he's clearly become senile. Don't say Zhong Yangming has gone mad. The people in the Dark Soul Hall were too exhausted to complain. What the hell, he's gone crazy. He was stunned from being scared. Su Fu hurriedly explained, Prince Xiao, I assure you, this insect was planted by me. Without the antidote, He will definitely die. If you don't believe me, ask Minister Zhong. The others echoed in unison, Minister Zhong. Quick, explain it to Prince Xiao. Don't just stand there, your life is at stake. Yes, Prince Xiao, Zhong Yangming is your close friend. He is also an important official in the court. You can't joke with his life like this. Zhong Yangming was completely confused. Who am I? Where am I? What are these people doing? Weren't they just trying to kill me a moment ago? What's this all about? After hearing what they said, the man hesitantly asked Zhong Yangming, are you really dying? But Zhong Yangming countered, are you really Prince Xiao Tian? Ignoring him, the man continued, there's a little brat named Zhongling who mentioned, when she was 6 years old, she had an annoying old man. Before farting, he would deliberately turn his backside towards her face. Instantly, everyone in the Black Soul Hall struggled to hold back their laughter. Thank you for your fart, it gave us a chance to survive. Zhong Yangming felt a chill run down his spine. Why would the prince use such things? To prove his worth. Zhongling, that damn girl. She's still remembering something from when she was 6. It was my first time being a dad, just having some fun with the kid. What's wrong with that? A moment later, Zi Qinglian stepped forward to comfort the man. Prince Xiao, this is all a misunderstanding. The man felt disgusted. Can't you speak normally, like a grown man? What a pathetic sissy, who are you trying to disgust? Suddenly, Zi Qinglian broke into a cold sweat, coughing. Sorry, Prince Xiao. I've gotten used to acting this way. Enough, stop the nonsense. Bring out the antidote. The man waved his hand impatiently. With a look of annoyance on his face, Su Fu took out a lamp. Immediately, a faint fragrance filled the air. Zhong Yangming breathed in deeply, like a fish returning to water. The man was somewhat doubtful. Is this the antidote? Zhong Yangming quickly explained, Your Highness. This only alleviates the fragrant insects in my stomach. It doesn't prevent them from biting my internal organs. It's not an antidote. Hearing this, the man immediately flew into a rage. You dare to trick me? Zi Qinglian, frightened, quickly explained, it's not like that, Prince Xiao. We just want to make Master Zhong a little more comfortable first. As for the antidote, we hope to use it to exchange for the lives of the 4 of us. Moreover, I also hope that we can form a blood pact. That way, there will be a guarantee. Before the man could speak, Zhong Yangming stood up to stop him. No, Your Highness, you must not agree. A blood pact is a rule of heaven and earth. Once it's made, it cannot be broken. Once it's sealed, you will never be able to act against them again. As he spoke, Zhong Yangming gritted his teeth. I, Zhong Yangming, would rather die. But the Black Soul Hall, this malignant tumor, must be eradicated. Zhong Yangming would rather die. We must also eradicate the Black Soul Hall, this cancer. The members of Black Soul Hall immediately felt a chill down their spines. The worst-case scenario has indeed come true. It's not that Xiao Tian is too powerful. It's that Zhong Yangming isn't afraid of death. But then, the next second, the man suddenly spoke, Alright, let's form a blood pact. As he said this, the man turned to look at Zhong Yangming. If you die, where am I going to find another chef who cooks this well? Not to mention your daughter, that little brat Zhongling. If she knows her dad is really dead, she'll definitely cry non-stop and be a huge pain. So you can't die, not suddenly. The man's expression turned cold as he told everyone in the Black Soul Hall. I advise you all the same. Think more carefully when doing things in the future. Remember the way of heaven is cyclical, who can escape its judgment? Then, the man stood still. A few people from the Black Soul Hall surrounded him. The laws of heaven serve as witness. Xiao Tian will exchange his life to save Zhong Yangming's life. He will never be able to harm anyone from the Black Soul Hall present here. And the antidote must be effective. As the red light of the heavenly Tao rules gradually dissipated, the blood contract was successfully established. A brand was also imprinted on the man's hand by the heavenly Tao. Seeing this, Su Fu took out an antidote and told the man, after taking it, within 3 days, the fragrant insects will turn into pus. Saying this, he threw the antidote. It landed in Zhong Yangming's hand. The man coldly warned them. I hope you cherish this opportunity. Mind your own business. After speaking, the man, taking Zhong Yangming with him, transformed into a streak of light and left. Zi Qinglian and her subordinates finally breathed a sigh of relief. That big shot is finally gone. A moment later, having recovered, Zi Qinglian suddenly roared at Su Fu. Go and tell everyone in the intelligence bureau. They've planted a fragrance beetle, and they dare say Xiao Tian is useless. I'll make them wish they were dead. Su Fu was still in shock from the man's words. He blankly nodded. Rest assured, Lord, I will make them suffer worse than death. These useless fools. They actually said Xiao Tian is a good-for-nothing. That's clearly an impossibly strong monster. Another person scratched their head and asked, Hall Master, what should we do now? Zi Qinglian gritted her teeth, her face full of resentment. It seems we can only ask the high-level figures of the headquarters, the sacred demon sect, to take action. A gentleman takes revenge, even if it takes 10 years. But we can take action against him. This Xiao Tian, he left a loophole. Ha ha ha. I must torment him properly and love him dearly. At that moment, a burst of clear laughter suddenly came from outside the door. The woman was so scared that she trembled all over. She quickly patted Zikinglian. Sect Master Zikinglian was still lost in her own fantasy. She was a bit irritated by the sudden interruption. What are you doing? I told you before, I hate it when women touch me, right? Yet the woman trembled and pointed towards the door. No, my lord. Why you, look over there. What are you staring at? Zi Qinglian reluctantly followed the direction she pointed to. Holy crap, something's going to happen. Zi Qinglian was stunned, while those hiding outside the door. It is indeed the man who comes and goes, along with Zhong Yangming, the prince. We've been discovered. The man stepped out and said, Brother Zhong, do you know how to describe this kind of person? Zhong Yangming thought for a moment. I don't know, your highness, you tell me. The man crooked his mouth, his face full of arrogance, and pointed at Bai Qinglian. This one a dog can't change its nature. Zhong Yangming laughed, as expected. The source of happiness should be built on the suffering of others. The hall master, Qinglian, and the others were all terrified. Zhong Yangming, however, was full of admiration for the man. His Highness the Prince seemed frivolous, but in reality, he was very thoughtful. The prince had just told him to observe these few fellows first. I wanted to see if you truly regret your past actions and will stop seeking revenge. The man coldly stared at everyone. I originally thought about giving you a chance to help you walk the righteous path. I came back this time to compensate you for the damage done to your roof earlier, but now, you have truly disappointed me. Ziqing Lian was sweating profusely. Prince Xiao, I was just talking casually, and we have a blood pact. Zhong Yangming felt a pang of heartache. He knew this would happen. If it weren't to save himself, His Royal Highness wouldn't be so passive. Several people from the Black Soul Palace beside him also consoled him, saying, Prince Xiao, the Hall Master is right. It's all a misunderstanding. We have a blood pact. Zi Qinglian added even more arrogantly. If you dare to make a move, the rules of heaven and earth will descend, and all beings will be as ants. The man felt a surge of irritation. He's so stubborn. Even now, he still refuses to repent, and his tone is so sarcastic, just as I suspected. You people from the Black Soul Hall have been secretly targeting me all along. The man pointed at the Black Soul Hall Master, Zi Qinglian. I underestimated you. At first, I thought, you just wanted to use Poison Marsh Elder and the Earth Fiend to ruin my relationship with the Empress. I didn't expect your schemes to be this deep. You actually wanted to trap me with a blood pact. What a terrifying thought. This is such a toxic calculation. Facing the man's questioning, Zi Qinglian was completely stunned. What is this guy talking about? What has she schemed against him? If I had known he was this powerful, I would have been hiding instead. The few evil kings of the Black Soul Hall looked at him in disbelief. The Hall Master was actually able to scheme to this extent. That's amazing. Zi Qinglian was speechless. What are you looking at me for? I didn't. How could I use the Toxic Swamp Elder? Wait, Toxic Swamp Elder? Zi Qinglian suddenly realized. No, wait a minute. Bai Qinglian suddenly raised her voice. Did you say the Toxic Swamp Elder died at your hands? Are you the Yama King? The man explained seriously. Don't talk nonsense. Do I look like someone who would indiscriminately kill innocents? The poisoned Swamp Elder committed suicide. Zhong Yangming, behind the man, was stunned. So the prince is the Yama King, and the few from the Black Soul Palace. Hearing the man's words, she couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine. What exactly did you do? That someone would rather take their own life than live another second. Are you a devil? The man smiled, energy swirling in his palms. By now, you still haven't shown the slightest remorse. You still slander me as the murderer. It seems. You are all rotten to the core, but fine. Today, I will act on behalf of heaven and send you to the afterlife. Zi Qinglian was so frightened that she quickly made the first move. She spat out a large mouthful of venom, spraying it at the man. At the same time, she questioned him, you have already signed the blood contract. Aren't you afraid of the heavenly rules? The man just snorted coldly, truly despicable. Even his moves are so disgusting. As he spoke, the man's gaze sharpened. A tremendous force surged from his hand. It was like the roar of a cannon. With a thunderous sound, it shot straight towards Bai Qinglian. Looking at the marks left on the floor and wall, Zhong Yangming was horrified. Your Highness, why are you losing your composure like this? You must know, blood contracts are almost never signed. It's because the oath is so harsh, it's easy to break the rules. Once you seriously violate it, you're definitely dead. Zi Qinglian didn't expect it either. That man was so decisive. He just did it. Doesn't he value his life? As expected, outside the hall, the sky was now filled with dark clouds and rolling thunder. A suffocating atmosphere spread. Zhong Yangming looked up at the sky, filled with worry. The laws of heaven and earth cannot be defied or violated. If not, disaster will surely descend. Under this thunder, death is certain. Your Highness, you are too reckless. At this moment, no one was happier than Bai Qinglian. He laughed as he repeated the man's earlier words. The cycle of heaven is just. Who can escape its judgment? As they spoke, the thunder, filled with rage, crashed down from the sky. But this also provoked the wrath of the heavenly Tao. This giant dragon was the incarnation of the heavenly Tao. It let out a furious roar at the man. The people from the Black Soul Palace couldn't contain their gloating, enjoying the scene. The man, however, lowered his head, seemingly dissatisfied. The next second, the man suddenly snorted coldly and angrily spoke. If you have the guts, try chopping down on my head. As soon as the man finished speaking, the giant dragon seemed to sense something was wrong. Its pupils dilated in fear. It quickly dispersed the bird clouds in the sky, replacing them with beautiful seven-colored shrimp. Then it landed behind the man, its gentle roar proclaiming the man's dominance. It was as if to tell everyone that this man is my boss. Then, obediently, she started massaging his legs and shoulders. She looked like a sycophant. Zhong Yangming and the others from the Black Soul Hall were all stunned. They couldn't even find the words to express how they felt at that moment. Watching the heavenly Tao dragon flatter the man, it then quickly made its exit. The others were so scared they were trembling, huddling together. The man chuckled. He extended his left hand, which had been covered by the blood contract, and said, "Blood contracts may be useful to you, but they're meaningless to the descendants of Deng Huang." As he spoke, the man clenched his fist, and the contract instantly vanished into thin air. The Black Soul Hall Master, Qinglian, was completely stunned. What kind of monstrous aberration was this? The laws of heaven and earth don't apply to him. He didn't hesitate anymore. He immediately knelt before the man and cried out, "Your Highness, I know I was wrong. Please spare my life. This time, I am truly repenting." The man shook his head. "Really? But I don't believe you." Zi Qinglian immediately changed to a flattering expression. "Your Highness, I know a huge secret. No need. I don't want to hear it. People like you, who wreak havoc on the world, and are bloodthirsty thugs, I will kill on sight. Earlier, I already gave you a chance against my conscience, but I'm just too soft-hearted. It hasn't been easy for you all to cultivate until now. I'll give you one last chance, like this. When I count to 3, you must each say one good deed you've done in your life. If you've done something good, it means there's still hope for you." Hearing this, the group exchanged glances. Xiao Tian is just a simple-minded fool, with well-developed limbs. We can just say something nice. Just a little deception and they'll be saved. Zhong Yangming sensed something was wrong. "Your Highness, this isn't right. For people like them, there's no need for rules." The man smiled. "Minister Zhong, your way of thinking is dangerous. The world is already difficult and dark enough. If even we, people with power, don't give them a chance to embrace the light. So, when will the sunlight be able to pierce the darkness? They are now in the darkness, but they can still walk towards the light. What's wrong with giving them a chance? So, are you 3 ready?" 3. Hearing this, the group was momentarily stunned. Wait, isn't it supposed to start from 1? Before they could react, the man has already started making his move. "You are all hopeless. I've already counted to 3. Why aren't you speaking? Looks like I've been too sentimental. But don't worry, I won't leave your bodies to rot in the wilderness." Just as he spoke, a black hole suddenly appeared behind the group, sucking them all in. Zhong Yangming listened to their curses before death, feeling powerless to complain. "I don't know if His Highness Prince speaks like a human, but this prince, he's truly a dog." He even clapped his hands and pouted in regret. What's the point of having all that power? Still, he can't lead others to do good. Sigh. As expected, as soon as Zhong Yangming was saved, he suggested, "Your Highness, if we were to completely destroy the Black Soul Hall, the southern border of the Great Yan Empire will definitely be stable for many years." The man turned his head silently, and said, "Look, I've only just revealed my strength, and you're already making me do things." Zhong Yangming awkwardly said, "Well, it's the principle that the capable work more." The man let out a long sigh. "You exploiters really have no heart. If my wife finds out about my true strength, wouldn't I be busy all day long, completely overwhelmed? No, my strength absolutely cannot be revealed." Turning to Zhong Yangming, he said, "I warn you, don't reveal my strength after you go back." Zhong Yangming was about to say something, but the man continued with a smile, "If you dare to speak of it, I will tell Zhong Lichuang about your 167 hidden savings, and every night, I will secretly drag you to the Yihong courtyard. and let Zhong Lisuang deal with you. Zhong Yangming was terrified. Prince, how could you speak such cruel things? Can't I just stop talking about it? Would that not be fine? But your highness, my daughter and Lu Yan, along with the Black Soul Hall. The man waved his hand and interrupted. Zhong Ling and the others know about me. They've also agreed to keep it a secret. As for the Black Soul Hall, the two of them walked out of the main hall. Only then did Zhong Yangming realize that, besides the main hall, other parts of the Black Soul Temple have become ruins. What? What happened? The man smiled. I was going too fast when I came here earlier. The air currents in the valley were too violent. I accidentally flattened the buildings a bit. As for them, they were probably crushed incidentally. Perhaps this is the retribution for their many evil deeds. Zhong Yangming was stunned inside. What a perfect retribution. A moment later, the two arrived at a place that was relatively intact, sealed by a great formation. The man directly reached out and grabbed into the air. The next second, the large door was blasted open with a loud bang. The place was filled with rich spiritual energy and multicolored treasure light. This should be the location of the Black Soul Hall's ill-gotten gains. As soon as they entered, Zhong Yangming was stunned by the room full of spirit stones. The man called for the system, Wang Kai, asking it to calculate the value of these items. But Wang Kai told the man, system upgrade in progress, temporarily under maintenance. The man immediately became upset. You can't even handle such a small task. What's the use of having you, system? Just get rid of it already. Wang Kai was so scared that it immediately paused the upgrade. It immediately began calculating, respected master. Calculation complete. The value of the Black Soul Temple's treasury. May I continue the upgrade and maintenance? Yes, go ahead. Thank you, master. The system continues upgrading, entering maintenance mode. Then, the man took a deep breath and told Zhong Yangming, the value of the things here. Only a little over 32 million spirit stones. As compensation, it's barely acceptable. I didn't expect the Black Soul Temple to look so grand, but it's actually poor as a beggar. Zhong Yangming quickly explained, Your Highness, the entire annual tax revenue of the Great Yan Empire is only about 10 million spirit stones. But Your Highness, aren't these supposed to be handed over to the National Treasury? Why are they being compensation? The man looked displeased. Handed over to the National Treasury. What for? These are all compensation from Ziqing Lian to us, from the Black Soul Hall. Zhong Yangming's heart skipped a beat. Where is this coming from? Ziqing Lian has already been made miserable by you, Prince. Isn't it enough that you still won't leave him in peace even after his death? The man crossed his arms and began to explain. I should be enjoying a drink right now, snacking on some appetizers, waiting for you to prepare the dishes at your residence. But now it's because of the Black Soul Hall that I'm here. The Black Soul Hall is out to harm us for profit. Shouldn't they compensate us with 10 million spirit stones? I'll take 9 million, you take 1 million. Zhong Yangming is completely confused. Your Highness, what do you mean by scheming for money and taking lives? You don't understand. Time is money, time is life. The Black Soul Palace has wasted our time. How is that not about greed and murder? Aside from compensation, the labor fee of 10 million spirit stones has to be paid, right? As for the tuition, I'll take a bit of a loss. Let's call it 10 million spirit stones. And for the transportation fee, 5 million spirit stones should be fair. Plus, the mental distress fee for being kidnapped here. 2 million should be reasonable, right? Altogether, that's 37 million spirit stones. But the total value of the treasury here is only 32 million. Damn it. This Black Soul Palace still owes us 5 million spirit stones. Looking at the man's indignant expression, Zhong Yangming's worldview completely collapsed. Why is it that even though they're clearly finished, they can still owe you another 5 million? Your Highness, the way you're calculating this is amazing. Incredible. After putting on his and Zhong Yangming's night cloaks, the man was very satisfied. As expected, it's the one I picked. This outfit looks perfect for a quick escape. Alright, wait for me a moment. I'll clean up the scene. As he spoke, the man suddenly exuded a powerful aura. Without any visible movement, the palace below suddenly started to shake. In an instant, yellow sand filled the air, and the ground collapsed. In the blink of an eye, all the buildings of the Black Soul Palace vanished, leaving only dust. Zhong Yangming stared in astonishment. Your Highness, just how strong are you? What is your level of power? Could it be above the Saint Realm? The man replied honestly, I don't have a realm. I don't even have spiritual energy. Didn't you notice? Zhong Yangming realized belatedly. The prince really is just like an ordinary person, but why is it so strong? Stop guessing. My power is a bit special. It seems to be still improving, but I don't know exactly how strong it is. Luckily, I'm very good at controlling my power. Otherwise, the great Yen would have already been destroyed. Destroyed? Zhong Yangming was so scared that his scalp tingled. With the prince's abilities, it seems like this could be possible. It's not such a difficult thing. If I were stronger, wouldn't I have been so easily kidnapped? Thinking this, Jin Zhongyang clenched his fist and asked the man, "Your Highness, could you guide me in my cultivation?" The man was startled. "You want to cultivate?" I remember Zhongling saying that you don't really like cultivating. They are all focused entirely on the great Yan Empire. Zhong Yangming's face was serious. After witnessing the prince's strength, his thoughts have changed. This time, the Black Soul Temple had a task for me, which is why they didn't harm me. But what if next time they target someone from the great Yan Empire? What if they try to take my life directly? So this incident with the prince has given me some inspiration. If I outwardly appear weak, and wait for those who want to harm me to show themselves, then I can directly take action and capture them all at once. Looking at his sinister smile, the man couldn't help but be speechless. This guy is so cunning. He actually wants to play possum. The man immediately adopted a posture of rejection. You can leave me out of this. I just want to quietly enjoy my time living off others. They forced me to take action, but it's good for you to practice a bit. It'll save you a lot of trouble. So, have you decided on your title? Zhong Yangming scratched his head in confusion. Title? What title? How silly. Who in this world doesn't have a name? Think of one beforehand, and announce it after you strike. It's better than letting others give you a name, right? I had a friend before. He liked to ambush in the latrine before making a move. So others gave him the name, the Killing Shit King. Therefore, you should take this seriously. What if others call you Heavy Tank Cavalry? The man spoke with righteous indignation. Zhong Yangming, however, muttered in a daze. Your friend, the man interrupted directly. That's not the point. The point is your title. Have you thought of one? Upon hearing this, Zhong Yangming's gaze became resolute. Let's call it the Heavy Cavalry. The man instinctively praised him. Decisive enough. Man enough. Wait. What the heck? Are you sure that's the name? Zhong Yangming, with a confident look, said, yes. It's called Heavy Tank Cavalry. Heavy represents the great Yen nation, and tank represents a calm and steady attitude. As for cavalry, it naturally means charging into battle. I really like this name. The man couldn't explain it directly. He could only lament his comprehension. Being the Minister of Revenue is a waste of his talent. He can even make a mess of explaining words. He truly deserves to control Zhong Lishuang. This real man who can handle a strong woman like her. It's fortunate that he doesn't know what tank means here. Otherwise Zhong Lishuang would definitely be furious. That scene was terrifying. I can't even bear to think about it. At this time, Zhong Yangming suddenly spoke again. Your Highness, there's something I would like to ask for your help with. The man glared at him. What's all this fuss about? No, Your Highness, please. From the previous 5 meals a week, increase it to 10 meals a week. The man's face immediately lit up. Alright, what is it? Zhong Yangming pointed to the ruins below. Please, Your Highness, write a line. Write something big. I, King Yen, am bound to succeed. It needs to be big enough to cover the entire valley. I want to use Your Highness's name as a hidden powerhouse to stir up this deep pool. Let's see if we can find out who exactly is opposing our great empire, and what are they doing? The man stared blankly at him, unable to help but mutter, You're so sinister. The words were barely out when, the next second, the man suddenly felt a chill. He turned his head to look behind him. It's over. My wife's here. Quick, run. After leaving the name of the King of Hell on the ground, with a loud roar, a gust of wind swept up and he left directly. Zhong Yangming watched the prince disappear into the sky, and couldn't help but sigh, truly ridiculously strong. Then he looked at the Empress's speed. In comparison, it was really slow. After a moment, the Empress retracted her golden light and slowly landed in front of Zhong Yangming. Seeing that he was unharmed, a trace of doubt couldn't help but arise. Uncle Zhong, are you okay? Upon closer inspection, the Empress became even more confused. Didn't Zhong Lishuang say that Uncle Zhong was kicked out wearing only a thin inner garment? How is it that now he is wearing a set of high-grade spiritual tools? Then, the Empress casually turned her head and took a look. Damn, this is the king. Only then did Zhong Yangming explain, Please forgive me, Your Majesty. I was originally captured by the Black Soul Temple, one of the 6 evils, the hidden killer Ghost Mo, under the heavenly evil Pang Tong. According to what Qi Lian said, he wanted me to protect the prince from being harmed by Lu Aotian. The Empress frowned tightly, seeming a bit confused. Zhong Yangming continued. It was at that moment that King Yen appeared. He was dressed in black, his face indistinguishable. Bai Qingnian and the others were killed by him. Not only did he give me the antidote, he also let me take all the treasures from the Black Soul Hall. He said he didn't even care about them. The Empress looked shocked. If that's the case, what is this king of hell after? It seems like he's after the current stability of the Great Yan Empire. He doesn't want the Great Yan Empire to be affected by the Black Soul Hall and Blood Cloud Tower. Your Majesty, think carefully. Lu Outyen has dedicated himself wholeheartedly to the Great Yan and the Black Soul Hall years ago. Not only did they refrain from offending the Great Yan in the slightest, but they even took action for the Great Yan, assisting the Cloud Tower. Isn't their goal the same? Their objective, before taking action, is to nurture the national fortune and strength of the Great Yan, just like raising pigs. The Empress nodded, looking thoughtful. As you said, it is indeed like that. Zhong Yangming took out the storage ring given by the man. Your Majesty, this is a gift from the King of Hell. The Empress took it and sensed it. It was filled with high-level spirit tools. The King of Hell is quite generous. It seems, he truly wants the Great Yan to thrive. I have no idea what they're planning. Zhong Yangming couldn't help but complain. What else could they be planning? They're just after food, drink, and fun. The lazy, carefree kind of plan, right? I need to ask Zhongling when I get back. How did the prince manage to anger the poisoned swamp elder to death? After putting away the ring, the Empress told Zhong Yangming, let's hurry back. General Zhong and Zhongling are very worried about you. Alright, thank you, Your Majesty. Zhong Yangming's voice had just fallen. The next second he was locked by a force. Immediately, the Empress pulled him and they soared into the air. From his own experience, Zhong Yangming realized that the Empress's speed was actually terrifying. Not long after, Zhong Lishuang and Zhongling were both frowning, sighing deeply. At this moment, Zhongling suddenly stood up. He forcefully patted Zhong Lishuang, who was beside him. Mother, look. Zhong Lishuang looked over, and her eyes instantly filled with tears. Her mouth dropped open. Her husband is back. Although he still had dark circles under his eyes, but the high-level spiritual artifact still looks quite impressive. Zhong Lishuang stepped forward and hugged her husband. The two of them cried in each other's arms, blaming themselves. If we hadn't argued yesterday, this wouldn't have happened. No, it's not your fault. It's my fault for making you angry. Zhongling watched, feeling a bit annoyed. Alright. You two are already an old married couple, why are you being so mushy? I really can't stand it, hearing that. Zhong Lishuang finally let go of her husband. She turned around and poked Zhongling's head. The Empress looked at their family, so harmonious and happy. She couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. But beneath the satisfaction, there was also a tinge of sadness. It's so nice to be with family. Every time I handle memorials late at night, she would always recall the happy family life of others. But she could only comfort herself. That even alone, she, Your Majesty, could manage. Little did she know, her nominal husband was an unparalleled being, who had already solved two major problems for her. That night, after dealing with the memorials as usual, the Empress stretched lazily, satisfied. The maid standing by quickly stepped forward and asked, Your Majesty, shall we bring over the midnight snack? No need, I have no appetite tonight. Has the inner hall behind the imperial study been tidied up? The maid seemed to have something difficult to say. She hesitated and mumbled. The weary Empress didn't sense anything wrong. She went straight to the back hall, but she found that something seemed off about the back hall. Usually, when she rested, the back hall wouldn't have many lights on, especially the front courtyard, which should be dim and cold. Why is it different today? As she thought about this, the Empress quickly took another couple of steps, and there she saw her shield, her husband. The man was sitting on the stone chair. When the Empress arrived, he smiled. You've worked so hard for so long. How about some hot pot for a late-night snack? This dish, I'm sure you've never had before. The Empress froze for a moment, as if emotions were welling up in her heart. How are you here? The man stood up and helped the Empress sit down. Commander Lu told me about you. You have a small habit. Every time you stay up late dealing with state affairs, you always have to eat some late-night snacks. Since you're having a late-night snack, it's no fun doing it alone. I've prepared some local specialty dishes from my hometown here. Let me treat the hardworking Your Majesty. Saying this, the man picked up a piece of meat. This hot pot, you have to dip it to eat. The cooking time for each ingredient is different. Try this, I'll tell you, so you don't have sesame paste here. It's so fragrant. The man blew hard on the meat on the chopsticks. Your Majesty. Here, Your Majesty, please take a bite. The Empress' face turned slightly red as she obediently stretched her mouth forward. After chewing carefully, the Empress felt the deliciousness in her mouth. Her face turned even redder. The prince has served me well. I am very pleased. A reward is in order. The man looked at her with interest, wondering what His Majesty would reward me with. The Empress responded to the man with ardent eyes. I'll reward you by letting you feed me again. The man smiled. Your Majesty, please wait a moment. This piece of meat I'm preparing for your majesty requires some special attention. Your majesty will have to wait. The empress quietly watched the man work. I can't help but feel, it's not just me, it's wonderful. From then on, the two of them chatted and laughed over drinks, accompanied by a steaming hot pot. Unknowingly, it was already late at night, until they were full and satisfied. The man finally put down his chopsticks, then stood up and told the empress, Your Majesty, it's getting late. I should go home now. After he finished speaking, the ring on the man's hand emitted a burst of light. He gathered all the tableware on the table and put it away. After finishing, the man prepared to leave immediately. But the empress suddenly spoke. There's no need for all this trouble. Just rest here. Hearing this, the man's heart trembled. He turned his head in surprise. But she found the empress looking at her with a gentle smile. Her eyes were like rippling water. It seems another restless night awaits. At night, the man lay in bed, but the empress sat upright, cultivating. The man was speechless. So she wants me to watch her cultivate? But so this is how she cultivates. The man had started nodding off from waiting. Half asleep, half awake. The man suddenly froze. What the hell is this? A mighty dragon was actually coiled around the empress. It made her look even more imposing. The man wanted to cry but had no tears. Damn it, why can't I cultivate? He really wants such cool visual effects too. The man suddenly remembered the system, Wonkai. He called out to it in his mind, but the system displayed that it was upgrading. The man was immediately displeased. Why hasn't it finished upgrading yet? Hearing this, Wonkai immediately stopped the upgrade.